Good evening. I'm here. A little earlier than usual, which is good. Still not as early as I would like to be to like marathon this, but hey, we're gonna do this. We're gonna do some Ace Attorney tonight. Like I've been doing a lot lately. Let me double check that everything sounds okay, as I always do. Alright. What do we got here? Let me double check that everything sounds okay. Good. I need to only listen to like 2 seconds of that to know it's good. So tonight I'm going to start the last chapter, but first I'm going to do... I guess, given how these are set up, I could probably do 3 of these, or 2 of these. I know this last chapter is going to take at least 3 or 4 streams, which means I might not even beat it this week, unfortunately. Because I'm only streaming until Thursday. I will not be here Friday and Saturday again. So we'll see what happens. But we'll start with at the British Supreme Court. This escapade takes place as Ryunosuke and Sasato visit Lord Strongheart to report on the outcome of Mr. Natsume's trial. They find a flustered Inspector Gregson attempting to solve a very taxing problem before his time runs out. Yeah, so these are all based on the first game. The second game does not have escapades. 26th of February, 9:17 a.m. Here we go again. Every time we visit here, the atmosphere in this place seems to get more and more overbearing. Just think, we could be at home with Mr. Sholmes and Iris, having a nice, cozy breakfast. But we have a duty to report the outcome of the case, especially since we're guests here in Britain. So I'm afraid this visit couldn't have been avoided. I suppose not, but is there anyone even here? You could hear a pin drop in this place. It's too solemn for its own good. It is very quiet, isn't it? The only sound is the ticking of the great clock as it keeps perfect time. What was that, I wonder? They're getting started early today. 1 second. The usual comforting sound of the clock seems to have been joined by a less comforting shuffling sound today. You're right. Something's disturbing the rhythmical timing. It sounds rather like an unfit middle-aged man running from pillar to post, clumsily. Who are you calling unfit? Oh, Inspector Gregson, what are you doing here? What am I? Isn't flaming obvious? 58 seconds remaining, Inspector. We'll have to talk later, Sunshine. That's not his voice, whoops. We'll have to talk later, Sunshine. Good morning, Log? That's a new one. Good morning, Long Strong Dart. Wow, he's really looking fiercely at his pocket watch today. And good morning to you. Business so early in the day. Oh, yes. Well, I mean, it's about the other day. We are to deliver our report, Log? Why do I keep saying Log? Load Shod. Like from Battle Network 1. Which, by the way, it's not Shod, it's Shoud. I only learned how to pronounce that right before I streamed Battle Network 6. So that's why if you listen to any of the old Battle Networks, I say Chod instead of Shoud. We are here to... Ah, fuck it, British! We are to deliver our report, oh Lord. We are to deliver our report, Lord Strongheart, as our dealings with Mr. Natsume are now over. Why was that 2 sentences? That felt like it was 1 sentence with a comma. Ah, yes, the little Japanese man. I've already cast my eyes over Van Zeek's report. I must say, the outcome surprised me. I thank you for a job well done. You are too kind, my lord.
It's not here, it's not there, it's not over there either.
I hope you don't mind me asking, but what exactly is the inspector doing? He's been harrying around between the bookshelves, looking beside himself with worry. He's looking for a particular work, The Lion's Pride. Now there's an all-too-familiar title. I'd heard it was a popular tale, so I obtained a copy from the rental library. However, it wasn't able to maintain my interest, so I soon cast it aside. I happened to notice a vacant spot on one of my shelves at the time, so I duly stowed the book there. Unfortunately, I no longer remember where that was.
Nope, not there, not here either. Come on, where are your lions hiding?
The book is due back today, so I've asked Gregson to locate it for me within his investigative powers. Prowess? Excuse me. Yeah, it's prowess. Inside 5 minutes. I must say, I've never seen anyone working so hard to find something. He's like a man possessed. Ah, yes, that's because his month's salary is staked upon the outcome. At whose instigation? Let me guess. The stony-faced lord? And the 5-minute time limit? What's the significance of that? There is none. Just my vulgar, mischievous spirit showing itself, I'm afraid. Oh, by your own admission.
Ah, I can't. My feet. You're killing me.
5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. Time's up, Inspector.
Ah!
Which means that next month you will work unpaid and have no days off.
No days off.
There really are just so many books here. It's overwhelming. For some, perhaps, I've purchased every book, new or old, on the subject of law, from all over the globe. Including this one, Evidence Law. It only has 2 rules written in it, and they have pictures. It's very entertaining. Wouldn't have believed that a short few decades ago, a place like this couldn't have existed. What do you mean, Inspector?
When I was a lad, no one ever dreamed of buying books.
Oh, I see. Western books are such luxury items, I suppose, with their leather covers and, fancy bindings. Bindings.
No, that's not it.
Oh.
There was a tax on paper, see?
On paper?
Yeah, I mean, it was abolished about 30 years back now, but it used to be the case. There was a tax levied on any kind of paper. So obviously that meant most folk couldn't afford to buy any books at all.
Ah, so is that why places like the rental library you mentioned before came into existence, Lord Strongheart?
Precisely.
Was he gonna say that? No, indeed. Vestiges of the paper tax system, you could say. The general public consider books as items for hire. London is home to a vast lending library of some 3.5 million books. You couldn't hope to read all of that, even if you were reincarnated 10,000 times. Even I would choose to rent a book rather than purchase it if I knew I would read it infrequently. The subject of a tax has actually surprised us already in the last few days. It came up in Mr. Natsume's trial. It seems that the window in his room was filled in due to some kind of window tax. That would be true. Fortunately, the window tax was abolished here some 40 years ago. Sadly, in the East End in particular, many windowless houses still remain. Britain's always had a bit of a thing for taxing stuff. Whatever they can tax, they tax. Sugar, salt, tea, coffee, you name it. Candles, beards. Wait, sorry, what was that last one? Did you say beards? Yup, the beard tax. Never heard of it? Never. Why should people have to pay money just because they let their facial hair grow? You may well ask. I suppose it's because it makes them look self-important. The Naruhodos will have a strict family policy of no facial hair, I think. You can relax. The beard tax was confined to the annals of history a long time ago. I say annals of history because it's funnier. Even so, it's clearly something the British really love. Paying taxes, I mean. Paying them? You got that back to front, sunshine. But you can't deny you've had a lot of funny taxes over the years. You'd never find anything like that in Japan. Would you, Mrs. Sato? In actual fact, I'm afraid to say that you would, Mr. Naruhodo. Wait, what? No. You don't mean... Surely there's never been a window tax in Japan. No, but there have been similarly obscure taxes. For example, in the Edo period, there was a frontage tax. What was that? It was a tax not on windows, but on the entrance to properties. The larger a property's entrance was, the greater the tax that was levied on it. Even today, some mansions survive with extremely narrow entrances due to that old form of taxation. I had no idea. So you Japanese are as twisted as us Brits. But we never had a beard tax. I mean, that's really going a step too far. Well, no, that's true. I'm not aware of any taxes for beards, at least. What do you mean, at least? Well, rather than tax them, the shogunate did once prohibit them outright. The ruling class prohibited beards? It was called the Great Beard Prohibition. It was an Edo period edict. But why did the powers that be want to ban beards? Because it makes people look self-important? Just an idea. It would seem that the rulers in the East and the West have had very similar ideas over the years. I'd be taxed to hell and back. There have been other unusual taxes in our history, even in our current Meiji period. There have? For example, though it was before either of us were born, there was a rabbit tax. There was a tax on those adorable fluffy creatures? Like the one who makes mochi sweets on the moon? The one that's starving inside the burger joint? Yes, and it was an extremely large tax, too. The government demanded extraordinary sums of money. This just gets stranger and stranger. What was the reason for that bizarre tax, then? Well, after Japan opened its doors to the world, there was an unprecedented rabbit boom in the Meiji capital. A boom? Yes, keeping rabbits became hugely popular, and new species were traded at exorbitant prices. People were even swindled out of all their money for exotically colored rabbits. Like colored chicks, I suppose. To imagine, though, rabbits are so timid and quiet. Wouldn't have thought one could bankrupt you. So in response to this worrying social vogue, the government imposed a rabbit tax. I suppose they couldn't just ignore the problem. And it worked, because the rabbit boom came to an abrupt end. 6 years later, the tax was abolished. Well, I hate to say it about my own country, but Japan is strange, alright. But there's more. After the rabbit tax was abolished, then, of course, society reacted by launching straight into a second rabbit boom. Oh dear. The government didn't think that one through, did they? Hey, lols, thank you. I hope I have a fun stream, too. I hope I don't blow my voice out. Thank you. Ooh, this Arnold Palmer tastes interesting. Like, every time I drink another one, it tastes different. And I think I brought that up last night. Where, like, mentioning stuff where you start eating it and it tastes one way. And, like, when you get to the end, it tastes a different way. This one tastes very sweet. Like there's extra lemonade in it. Your ideas about the world are very much altered by the position you hold in society. If you are responsible for the running of a country, you will feel the need to raise revenue keenly. Without a stable taxation system, the whole country would go down the drain. Well, yes, I suppose so, but some of these taxes... That's precisely why ministers of the state use their wiles to invent new and novel ways of taxing the public. Novel ways? Tell me, Mr. Naruhodo, if you were one of my country's statesmen... Me, a British statesman? Yes, what novel tax would you impose? Pray, give us something truly original. Inside 5 seconds. What? Oh, think of something that everyone uses, Mr. Naruhodo, and really squeeze every penny out of the population. That's quite the intense stare. I'm very glad Sasato-san isn't in charge.
Your time is up. So, what's your answer?
Well... Air, maybe?
Yes, how about air?
Ah, yes, this is worthy of the pursuit theme.
An air tax, you say?
Oh, well done, Mr. Naruhodo. A truly novel and fiendish idea. Well, everyone has to breathe, so while the population is inhaling air, my government's inhaling money.
Blimey, you're a tyrant at heart, eh?
A somewhat radical solution to the country's revenue problems, but sadly, not an original one.
No, you mean to say...
Surely not. You mean a tax on air has been imposed in the past?
It was last century. The finance minister of our neighbor of France proposed it.
What? If I ever go for a visit, I'm holding my breath. But,
Unsurprisingly, it was strongly opposed by the public and soon scrapped. The minister didn't last long either.
Oh dear. Although clearly that would have been an untenable situation. The public at large are a force to be reckoned with. That was a weird S noise.
Don't I know it?
How about you, Inspector? What new tax would you impose?
Let me see. My first thought is a tax on objections.
Sorry?
Been hearing far too many of them recently in court. There's a particular lawyer I have in mind as it happens. So I think an objection tax could be very handy.
Good to see you don't allow your personal feuds to influence your work in the public office.
I reckon 5 pence for every objection raised would be about right.
A most amusing proposal, Gregson. A most unamusing proposal, my lord. Oh, it's still not over. Okay. I thought this one was gonna be short.
Well then, I think it's your turn now.
Sorry, my turn for what?
Why, what else? To locate my missing copy of The Lion's Pride.
Oh!
It's on one of the shelves in this room. Of that I am certain. Now, I shall give you 10 minutes. And let's stake your student's stipend on it, Fail to find the book and you forfeit next month's payment. Objection! Your time starts now. Oh, and one more thing. I believe you just said the word objection. Kindly leave your 5 pence over there before you begin combing the shelves. This tax is going to be the death of me.
Strongheart's a very weird person. He's, like, super serious, but also he has no qualms being a total asshole on purpose. I get very mixed vibes from this dude. In Sholmes' suite, this fourth escapade unfolds one morning on Baker Street when Iris has prepared breakfast for everyone as usual. But Ryunosuke wakes to find an envelope under his door containing a death threat. Who on earth could have put it there, and why? Ninth March. Oh, okay, we're in the next month now. This might be a little too far. We'll see where the next one starts, because if it goes too far ahead, I don't want to skip where we are. Good morning, Iris. Good morning, Mr. Sholmes. I just don't want to spoil the 5th case, because I haven't played it yet. Oh, morning, Susie. I'll get breakfast on the table for us all. Ah, Mr. Sholmes. Morning.
Come now. Why the long face?
Oh, sorry. The thing is, I just had a rather strange envelope posted under my door this morning, with some rather strange things inside. What strange things? Oh, what was it, Runo? Do I catch the scent of mystery in the air? Nothing so exciting, I'm afraid, Iris. It was just 5 orange pips. I can't imagine what it could possibly... What? Orange pips, Mr. Naruhodo? And 5 of them? What's the matter with you? That's a bit of an overreaction, isn't it? An overreaction? Mr. Naruhodo, you don't understand. It's a warning, a notice of imminent danger. To your life. What? To my life? What's the meaning of all this, Mr. Sholmes?
My dear fellow, why do you make such an inquiry of me?
Because the name of the sender was written on the envelope, and it was yours. Oh. You're right, Runo. It says it's sent by Sholmes, Envoy of Hell.
So my little ploy has been exposed. Well, so be it. Cast your mind back, if you will, Mr. Naruhodo, to the time of our dining last night.
Oh, yes. Mrs. Sato cooked Japanese food for us.
Indeed, in particular, you may recall the final Norimaki sushi roll that I was about to savor. That is, before you swooped in with your clacking chopsticks and filched it from under my nose.
Oh, I assumed because you left it that you didn't want it.
I'd left it, my dear fellow, because I'd planned to enjoy it as my very last mouthful.
I am the same way with sushi. I always make sure I leave the best one for last. Might get sushi this Friday, for lunch.
Surely you must have noted my intent by the subtle dilation of my right pupil.
Perhaps a clearer sign would be more helpful next time. Just an idea.
In summary, the post you received earlier is a notice of impending revenge. You should be quaking in your boots.
Really? Because I went straight out into the garden and planted them. I'm hopeful we may grow some exotic fruit. There's no point sending a notice of impending revenge if the person you send it to doesn't know what it is. Well, I know, of course, because I've read this book. The Adventures of Sherlock Sholmes. On sale now in all major London bookshops and receiving rave reviews. Oh yes, of course, it's finally been published, hasn't it? I hear it's selling very well. It is, 12 short stories in one volume. I've earned a lifetime spending money already. My suggestion, Iris. Don't go. It's the 1890s now, and you're 10. When you turn 30, don't go to America, because I've got some bad news about what happens in the 1920s over there.
And it has further bolstered my name. In fact, the other day a Bohemian king sought to engage my services.
Really? That's extraordinary.
Of course, the gentleman persisted with some pretense about being a fishmonger for the duration.
Ah.
But only a fool would presume to be able to deceive my eyes with such a charade.
So how did you know that he was a king, then?
Why, there is no mystery, my dear fellow. A distinct smell of fish accompanied the man's lowly apparel. And though he tried to hide it, the left side of his mustache quivered in quite a manifest manner.
Oh, Mr. Sholmes. That's simply brilliant.
Having neatly resolved the case for the man, I was sent a quantity of fresh cod as a mark of his appreciation.
I think perhaps you shouldn't discount the possibility that he actually was a fishmonger. Ah, is that... Can anyone else smell burning? Oh yes, you're right. And look, smoke. I think maybe...
Fire! Fire! There's a fire, everyone!
Really? A fire?
We must all leave at once. Everyone, out the building!
No, wait. I have to go back to my room first.
Are you deranged? If you're not asphyxiated by the smoke, the flames will burn you to death.
But my Daruma doll! I can't let my Daruma burn. Burn? Excuse me. It means too much.
Ah, drat, sorry, but I'm going to make a dash for it upstairs.
Oh, Runo, you're so funny. This is no time for jokes, Iris. Go, quickly, get out of here. But there is no fire. Is there, Hurley? Huh? Ah, what a delight to see that ploy enacted in the flesh. I wouldn't have dared to dream I should be so lucky. Mrs. Sato?
Indeed it was a ploy. A devilment engineered by my puckish spirit.
It was all a trick? But why?
It's a simple experiment of the mind, Mr. Naruhodo. When his life is threatened, a fellow is compelled instinctively to protect that property to which he attaches matching importance.
And after your own life, Runo, the most important thing to you seems to be your Daruma doll. Let's not dwell on that, shall we, Iris? So, you knew all along, Mrs. Sato, that it was a trick? Yes, of course. The very ploy is described in this book. The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes. On sale now in all major London bookshops and receiving rave reviews. Not again. I've used the device quite satisfactorily in the past to solve a case. Oh yes, it was a great success, wasn't it? But then it became something of a habit, didn't it? You started yelling fire at every crime scene. In the end, people started to pay no attention to you at all. Yes, that's true. There was a time when I was known as the Sholmes who cried wolf. I think there's a lesson to be learnt in there somewhere. But sadly, my little ploy failed to yield results this time. Iris was utterly unmoved. What do you mean? Well, I was anticipating that Iris would immediately expose her secret hiding place. The location of the nest egg she must have cached somewhere in this room. Nest egg? You think Iris has some secret savings? Why, naturally, the book is selling like hotcakes after all. It is a simple deduction indeed to conclude that the profits must be concealed here within these walls. Oh, Mr. Sholmes, are you in need of money? Ah, I bet I know what it is. It's that new microscope that's gone on sale, isn't it, Hurley? What else? I have such a strong desire to own one, yet my purse is £1 too light. And as no offer of a loan has been forthcoming, I've been forced to resort to an alternate... And as no offer of a loan has been forthcoming, I have been forced to resort to an alternative stratagem. Kinda flubbed it, but whatever. Sorry, Hurley, but I'm not falling for that. Not from the Sholmes who cried wolf. Ah, how vexing. You really shouldn't be trying to steal a 10-year-old savings, you know. My book is full of little tricks like that, you see? The army of the great detective. Except that in this case, both the orange pips and the fake fire fell a little flat, didn't they? Oh, I have plenty more tricks up my sleeve. Take, for example, the case of the Baskervilles Valley mystery. I'm already filled with dread, just from the title. It is a tale of extraordinary skill on the part of a great detective. The skill of tracking. Tracking? When I arrived at the scene of the crime in the eponymous valley, there were footprints everywhere. But my eye was immediately drawn to one set in particular. Oh, Mr. Sholmes, your detective instincts are truly remarkable. As you know, my dear madam, no detail, no matter how small, escapes the scrutiny of these eyes. So I tracked my quarry following the trail of his footprints, all the way to the man's place of residence. Led you directly to the culprit's house? What a triumph. You misunderstand, it led me directly to my own house, my dear fellow. Huh? Where the footprints were, in the final analysis, those made by my own shoes. Hurley had left here for Baskervilles Valley as soon as he received the telegram about the case, you see. And then he followed his own trail straight back here to Baker Street. Now, Iris, please, you make it sound almost humdrum, but I assure you, it is no easy feat. Tracking of this nature is a skill possessed only by the great Sherlock Holmes. You're right, it really is extraordinary. Quite so, extraordinary is the word, and let it be the last one on the subject. Anyway, needless to say, I subsequently went on to solve the case with various other deductions. Yes, it's the various other deductions that I'm interested in. Ah, well, you shall have to read the book then. I'm sure Iris has penned it with her usual flourish. Oh, absolutely! I put an ingenious spin on the great detective's exploits. Must have been very ingenious to make this man sound even remotely credible as a detective. Wait, is that... Does it smell like something's burning again? We've had enough devilment for one day, Mr. Sholmes. Put your puckish spirit to bed. I assure you, this has nothing to do with me or my spirit. What? Oh no, the smoke is getting thicker. You mean, it's not a trick this time? There really is a... Fire, fire! There's a fire, everyone! Ah! Mrs. Sato, where are you going? Stand aside, Mr. Naruhodo. Easy, Mr. Sholmes, what are you... Mr. Sholmes? Why did you just chuck that bust of Napoleon on the floor? Oh, look at that, and amongst all the broken porcelain. Coins, sovereigns in fact, worth a whole pound each. Come everyone, we must leave at once, evacuate the building. You fell for it, Hurley. Hook, line, and sinker. Ah. Wait, you mean Iris? I certainly wouldn't have guessed that's where you'd hidden it.
Do you mean to say that this smoke was...
My own puckish spirit needs to come out and play sometimes too, you know. What?
Of course I know what it is, Iris. It's that indoor herb garden set that went on sale last week, isn't it? That's what you're after.
I want one so desperately, but I'm 4 pounds short. And even though you told me you didn't have any money to spare before... I knew you had a secret nest egg somewhere in this room, but didn't you just say you had enough spending money for a lifetime? What happened to that?
Ah, you've outwitted me again!
You really shouldn't let yourself be outwitted by a 10-year-old child, you know? So, thank you for the loan, Hurley. Oh, but wait. What's the matter? Where's Susie? She's disappeared. Oh, yes, that's right. She ran off up the stairs before, didn't she? Oh! What are you all still doing here? We have to evacuate! It won't be long before the fire is... Ah. Sorry, Susie. Children will get up to mischief once in a while, you know. But it's all perfectly harmless. Harmless, maybe, but oh so devious. Ba-dum-bum. It's pretty good. Oh, we're not done yet. Shit. Oh well, at least nobody was hurt. Apart from Napoleon and my secret hoard. Now tell us, Mrs. Sato, what is it that you wanted so fleet-footedly to fetch? Sorry? Oh, no, nothing. This is just... No, this is nothing. Susie, that's your notebook detailing all of Runo's trials, isn't it? It's bulging at the seams. What? Ah, a testament to the various people you've helped over the past months. Mrs. Sato, Well, I am your judicial assistant, after all. I would do anything to ensure the safety of these records. Even risk my life, if necessary. I mean, it's very important to me. It's like a diary of everything we've achieved together. Getting all teary-eyed now. Yes, in stark contrast to a certain someone who would have fetched his Daruma doll, I must say. Touching. Alright, given the context at the very end there, I'm assuming that the rest of these take place after the game is over. So I'm kind of iffy on, like, loading up any more. I might just move ahead here. Like, I don't imagine this one would, spoil anything, but, like, I also don't want to risk it. So, oh yeah, I did do 2 other things last night after I went offline. Where's the ladder thing? Oh yeah, the Herlockian, having read every idea on Iris's blackboard. So, I didn't do the second one of these. I'd examined it before speaking with Iris, but I was also supposed to do it after speaking with her with the Wilson topic. And that, essentially led to me finding out about, where is it? I recorded the, end of the conversation, this. What Black Peter meant. It must be the title of Iris's latest work. Oh my. I wonder what fantastic tale awaits us. Sato-san looks like an angel, but I bet she's dreaming the most grisly crime you could imagine. It's a case that Hurley solved just recently. A black cat called Peter went missing in the neighborhood. Hurley tracked it down at the fishmonger's in the end. Well, I can't wait for the story to be published. So that's that. It's just a little bit of flavor text that I missed. That did matter, because that counted for part of the achievement. The other one was this achievement, Prime Presser. So, inconsistencies here in Prime Presser are present evidence and successfully press on the first cross-examination of... It says both games, because it says in both Great Adventure, both Adventures and Resolve for both of these, but you don't have to do that in both of them. It's just do it once in the first game. I did not have the prime presser one, so I pressed the very first statement in the game and got it. I went back to the very first one. And I think I recorded a video of that too, but I missed most of it. It's just Ryunosuke essentially fumbling and asking what the food that the sergeant ate was. And essentially Kazuma just gets on my case. Yeah. Kazuma tells you, how about trying to stick to questions that are relevant to the case? Oops, sorry, I'll do my best. And then this final question was, is it just me, or do you keep hearing a sort of wah crying noise? Well, at least we've learned that he's a big beef lover. Affirmative. Not easy knowing what questions to ask. And there we go, I got the prime presser. So yeah, even though it says you have to do it in both games, apparently they messed up and it's just the first or second game will get you the achievement. So I'm pretty much where I can be right now in terms of getting all the accolades. But anyway, it is time to start Chapter 5. And the finale of the Great Ace Attorney Adventures. Not the finale of the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles, because we've got quite a bit more to go on that. We got another whole game, which I will do at some point. Anyway, the adventure of the unspeakable story, the Hound of the Baskervilles. A hound it was, but not so much a hound as any mortal has ever seen. Its eyes glowed with a smoldering glare. The whole of its ox-sized body was outlined in white-hot flames. So I took a peek at the chapters. This is definitely the longest case. But, the next game, ooh, man, I think the longest case in the next game has 26 chapters in it. So, however long this is taking me to beat, I think the next game's gonna be even longer. But there's also less side stuff, because obviously there's no escapades. Anyway, let us start from the beginning of Chapter 5.
It's coming! Sholmes's cry pierced through the thick wall of fog around us. Wisps of vapor flowed over the pistol as I cocked it, and I waited, breathlessly, in the stillness. The silence lasted for what seemed an eternity, until, at last, it appeared. From the shadows of the cloud, an enormous beast sprang out upon us. A hound it was, but not such a hound as any mortal has ever seen. Its eyes glowed with a smoldering glare. The whole of its ox-sized body was outlined in white-hot flames. Its rumbling pant and hideous howl, so terrified was I that I began to tremble with fear. "Look well, Wilson," Sholmes declared, gazing upon the mystical beast. "For this is the diabolical Hound of the Baskervilles."
So I noticed something when I went back. So like I just said, I went back to the first case to get the Prime Presser Award accolade. The victim in the first case's name, the professor that worked at that university in Japan, who was from Britain, his name was John H. Wilson, which is Iris's last name. So, wondering what's going on there and what connection that lady has, the killer lady had to it all. It's very weird. There's a lot of loose ends here that are not getting tied up at all so far, and I'm wondering if it's not going to happen at all until the next game. Our first 2 months in London passed by in a flash. In that disconcerting courtroom experience we were first thrown into on the day we arrived in the country, and in Soseki-san's terrible ordeal that followed closely behind, we had emerged victorious. However, there then came an abrupt end to our opportunities to appear in court, which was hardly surprising, of course, since I was nothing more than an amateur, an unknown student of law from a faraway land. So life in our little office was very quiet. That is, until it was shattered one day by that fateful telegram. 15th of April, 9:13 a.m. Oh, okay. So I could probably do more escapades. Naruhodo's legal Naruhodo's legal consultancy Consultancy. Oh, that's good. That's great. I'm so glad I said that way. Consultancy. That morning, I was woken by the unreserved knocking on the door by the telegram boy. He was like, yeah, by the way, everyone on your phone list can see you've joined Telegram now. They're gonna start sending you furry stickers and uncensored porn. But after he'd gone, Sasato-san's behavior became very obviously strange. Sasato-san? Yes. Is it time to leave for court already? Let me see. What case is it today? I don't think I'm scheduled to defend anyone at the moment, am I? Oh, no, of course not. How silly of me. But I think Iris said she would make us breakfast this morning. So shall we go down to Mr. Sholmes' suite? Yes. Iris makes the most delicious breakfast food. She does, doesn't she? And once our bellies are full, we can leave for court in fighting fit form. Let me see. What case is it today? Here we go again. So this is the tea set that Sasato-san brought with her from Japan. Let's hope she hasn't noticed me slipping sugar and milk into my cup when she makes it. It's just so bitter. Tea is a drink to be enjoyed, Naruhodo-san. You really don't have to force yourself to drink it, you know. I don't like to see you screw up your face so. Oh, you're not early, Sour Cream. I've been streaming for 40 minutes already. You missed 2 escapades. That's what you missed. I didn't play any of the main story. Also, why'd you send me to... You asked me to raid someone who blocked you on Twitch. Last night. What was that about? I was like, oh, I didn't know. The person you... Okay, I don't want to go into it on stream, but... Hold on. I'll type it out. Yeah, like, I don't know what's up with that, but... Okay. I didn't get involved. I ducked out as soon as they said that. Really don't have to... Okay, blah, blah, blah. It's spring at last. What? And the weather is warmer now. But I love the smell of the fire and steam rising from the kettle. Oh, would you like some... Yeah, sure it did. Okay, whatever. Never mind. Don't worry about it. Oh, would you like some tea, Naruhodo-san? Thank you, Sasato-san, but I'm alright for now. With the green tea Sasato-san makes for me from time to time, and Iris' unique herbal infusions. This place is a paradise for a true tea lover. Green tea is such a wonderful accompaniment to British tea cakes, don't you think? No, so last night you suggested... Okay, so you suggested I raided someone last night, and I did. But, they, like, told me, like, oh, Sour Cream. I blocked them. And I'm like, oh no, now I feel awkward that I did that. The spade has been in here since we started renting the place. Oh, that's not a spade, Naruhodo-san. It's a shovel. No, shovels are for digging. That's for scooping up loose material. It's a spade. No, spades are for digging. That's for scooping up loose material. It's a shovel. I don't want to dig a hole for myself, so let's leave it. I've only been in here in London for about 2 months, but my desk is starting to look a little messy already. You could tidy up once in a while. Sasato-san, I always say, making a mess is a small sacrifice to pay for being able to further your studies. And time spent tidying up is time you can't devote to the same cause. Well, okay. She told me what you did in the Discord server, and I'm like, oh, okay. Look, it's fine. Don't worry about it. I'm not... Okay. And time spent... Okay. And time spent on ridiculous arguments is time that could be better spent on some simple housework. She wins, but I'm supposed to be the lawyer here. Oh, that Daruma doll I brought with me from home, still with only one eye colored in. I said I'd color the other eye once I won my first court case here in Britain, but... But you have one, haven't you? Twice, in fact. Because I feel as though I'm still lacking as a lawyer. I tell you what, why don't you color the other eye in once you think I'm a proper, fully fledged lawyer? If you insist. Up, 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 up. Ah, this must be the telegram. Let's see. Ah! No, you mustn't look at that. Not under any circumstances. Alright, I won't. I'm sorry, Naruhodo-san, but you can be very mischievous at times. Then put the telegram away if you don't want people looking at it. I want the orange. I want that orange. We were rather lucky to find that old aquarium left behind here. The prawns we put in there are doing rather well. And the anemones, too. The anemones. Anemones. There we go. It's a wonderful invention, isn't it? The sea behind glass inside your room. Another example of Great Britain's greatness. Having to clean it out and change the water isn't so great, though, is it? I hope you're putting salt water in there. Do you know, I've never seen inside your room there, Sasato-san. I never even peeped inside. I should think so, too. A young maiden's private chamber is a place of bittersweet secrets, you know. Whatever you say, young maiden. Okay, I think I've examined everything here. Any new dialogue here? Is this the same? Nope. Wish I could speed this up since I've already read it every case. It means a great deal to me, you know, that you cherish his armband so, and wear it each time you appear in court. Well, it's very important to me. It shows that I'm the lawyer. And whenever I wear it, I feel as though it gives me strength through Kazuma. I absolutely can't be without it, especially when I'm at a critical point in a trial. But just the other day I noticed you're wearing it when we went to visit the park. Sometimes I forget to take it off. Yeet. So, what was it all about? The telegram that was delivered this morning, I mean. Oh, a telegram? I don't know what you're talking about. Sorry, but you're not going to get away with that. Well, I didn't think I would. Actually, don't give it a moment's thought. It's nothing. Nothing interesting. Boring, in fact. Ahem. It was just a boring old telegram. Chirp, chirpity, chirp, chirp. That's 3 times now that she's tried and failed to convince me it was nothing. I promised I'll tell you about it at some point. Alright, I understand. Soseki-san. I suppose Soseki-san will have arrived back in Japan by now, won't he? Yes, I should think so. He left immediately after that terrible ordeal. Which would mean he should have completed the voyage already, or be just a few days away. A fortnight ago, we had a very long telegram from him. Do you remember? Complaining of seasickness? But by and large, it seems the voyage has been going well. Is something wrong, Naruhodo-san? I was just wondering, what might have become of Soseki-san if he had stayed in London, that's all. You mean, as regards Lord Van Zeeks? The Reaper? Yes, I can't help wondering if seasickness would have been paled into insignificance in that case. Excuse me. Yes, I can't help it. Yes, I can't help wondering if seasickness would have paled into insignificance in that case. Zaripa. What is it they say? That no one who stands in the dock can be saved from the Reaper, right? Like the way that nightmarish trial ended on the very day we arrived in London. Even 2 months on, the cause of that dreadful fire is still a mystery. Yes, but at least Soseki-san is safely out of the country now. Presumably that means that the curse of the Reaper can only take effect within the confines of the city of London, perhaps? Even if that's the case, it's a little comfort. It's of little comfort. I have a terrible sense of foreboding. If the legend of the Reaper is to be believed, it would mean he wields the sword of justice himself. Come to think of it, I wonder what he's been up to these past 2 months. Surely not wielding that sword against more acquitted defendants. No, I don't think so. Apparently Lord Van Zeeks hasn't appeared in court once since our last encounter. Oh? Yes, since Soseki-san's trial. He's withdrawn from judicial service again, it seems. Really? Just like before, when he wasn't seen in court at all for several years. So it's just me who's had to face him in his recent spate of trials, then. Just my luck. I wonder, if luck doesn't come into it... Sorry? What was that? Oh, nothing. Never mind. My lodgings and office located in the attic above the suite of rooms rented by Mr. Sholmes. I call it a consultancy, though clients aren't exactly beating down the door. With the furniture we moved in recently, this place is starting to feel like a real office. When you're ready, let's go downstairs for breakfast. The home and office of the world-famous great detective and his young companion, Iris. It seems people from all over the globe come to engage in his consulting detective services. Blah. Morning, Runo. Morning, Susie. Good morning, Iris. Iris. What is it, Runo? What is that terrible noise? It sounds like a cat being strangled. Ah, yeah. You noticed that too, did you? Hurley isn't in the best form this morning, it seems. We could go to IKEA for your Kia so we can get your key, yeah? I work for a company that makes keys, technically. So that joke is, reminding me of work, and that's not making me happy. Hello. Hello, Mr. Sholmes. Good morning. And a good morning to die, perhaps. Has something happened, Mr. Sholmes? You look miserable, and the way you were playing the violin before... Where's his, examination machine? Why is this, thing bare? Huh. My analytical mind is dead. Music is dead. The world is dead. Damn this blanched existence! That's all it is, my dear fellow. Nothing of consequence. I'm afraid I don't understand. Well, Iris, isn't it time we ate? Some dry toast and insipid coffee for me, if it's not too much trouble. What? What? What the fuck is happening? Oh look, it's Wagahai. What? What is this? What? Why is there a cat now? Good morning, boy. Wait, is that the cat from... Is that the cat from the suite? From Mr. Natsume's room? Also, that meow is written really great. Meow. Meow. That must be some sort of tiny door for cats to use. But how did it get there? Ow. Well then, everyone, time for breakfast. Oh, wonderful. Let me help you, Iris. Yeah, Mr. Sholmes is literally pulling a hello darkness, my old friend here. Ugh, it would indeed be a fine day to die. I knew something looked different. Something's missing from Mr. Sholmes' desk. Yeah, where is that analytical machine? This is where Iris notes down ideas, isn't it? Let's see. What does it say today? Ah, the Baskervilles Valley mystery. Oh, how intriguing. Oh, we just talked about that in the escapade. It must be the title of Iris's latest work. Oh my, I wonder what fantastic tale awaits us. Sasato-san looks like an angel, but I bet she's dreaming of the most unsavory crime you can imagine. Mr. Natsume's cat seems to have settled into his new home, then. Oh, yes, and I've become very attached to little Waggy. It appears previous owners have completely forgotten to him. Cats are unfeeling creatures. Their mews as empty as their hearts of the muses. If Mr. Natsume had no intention of taking Waggy back to Japan, I wonder why he kept him in the first place. I expect he would have taken him if he could, but pets are strictly forbidden aboard steamships in our experience. And for good reason. Terrible things can happen if the rules of passage are not obeyed. Well, I don't mind, because Waggy's adorable. Aww, he's a kitty! Yes, he really is. Oh yes, what about the door? I don't remember seeing that tiny thing in the main door before. Where did that come from? Oh, you noticed? You are observant, Runo. Look, I used this. It's my latest invention. What is that? I call it the Cat Flap-Flapomat. Gosh, a machine for making doors just for cats? That's right, it can make a cat flap for a little furry friend like Waggy in seconds. And it can do it on any door, no matter what it's made of. It's very powerful, you see. Wouldn't it have been quicker to just make the cat flap rather than making a machine to make the cat flap? Well, yes, maybe, but now I can make cat flaps anywhere I like. Oh, I think it's wonderful. You must make one for us. You must make one for us in the door of our office upstairs, Iris. She really knows how to come up with unconventional inventions, this girl. Imagine walking down the streets and you hear objection. Or the cornered music, yeah. Look at Mr. Sholmes' desk, it's completely clear. Isn't that enormous machine usually on it? We can never hope to understand what goes on in the great detective's mind, Mr. Naruhodo. Why, next time we're invited, we may find he's vacated the entire suite. That's scarily plausible, actually. Ah, yes, the letters V and R inscribed on the wall, and bullet holes. Isn't the initials of the Queen or something? It's so delightful to see it in the flesh, having read about it in the stories. It was so inspiring. I fired 100 arrows into my own wall at home to make the character of Sue for Susato, you know. Superb? But perhaps some things are that the great... but perhaps there are some things the great detective does that you don't need to copy. Yeah, VR, it's the name of the queen. Or the initials of the queen. All sorts on these shelves. Chemistry apparatus, books, papers, and lots of things I've never seen before. It's all heaped up so high I can't help feeling that the whole lot is going to topple at any moment. Oh, it's such a charmingly large It just looks messy to me, like my desk. But you know, Mr. Naruhodo, you must learn to tidy up after yourself. Mr. Sholmes is a VTuber. No favoritism there, then. Come to think of it, I haven't seen Iris doing much writing recently. But there's paper already set up in the typewriter. Look, as if she's about to start. That reminds me, when I mentioned that Iris was in the process of writing a full-fledged novel, Mr. Natsume was almost impressed. Most impressed, excuse me, it wasn't almost. Ah, yes, Mr. Natsume. That's what I'll be doing too once I'm back in Japan, he said, through tightly clenched fists and teeth. Alright, I just want to check something before we move forward here. Whoa, what? No, not in slot 3. What the fuck? Yeah, if you'll notice, I have another save file for Chapter 4 now, because I had to go back and examine the thing. I want to make sure that that counted for the thing, because I'm not sure. I think there's only a few things I have to do in this case to go for, examine the shovel twice in episode 5, with Iris and Susato, and then the rest are in Resolve. This is all Resolve. Okay, and then I have to examine the blackboard with Iris in episode 5. Okay, and it did count the one with Susato. And everything else is just kind of, yeah, okay. So it's just examine the spade with Iris and examine the blackboard with Iris, and that'll be everything I need to do for the rest of this game in terms of optional achievements. It's nice, it helps you, like, pinpoint what flavor text is worth reading. Mr. Sholmes, could I ask you for your opinion about this? You allow me to raise my languid head with the promise of some mental exaltation. Yet in my morbid depression, I am confronted with the most mundane of problems. Oh. My mind finds greater stimulation in the unforgiving monotony of the floor than in your miserable offering. Always glad to help. Oh, my head weighs heavy on my shoulders. You seem to be very unhappy this morning, Mr. Sholmes. What's happened? It used to be the case that in my hands, this violin sung like the dawn chorus. Its what the fuck is that word? Come on. Its mellissonant tones would make even the flowers bloom. It would? But now, the muses are unamused with me. The goddesses of music have thrown me over. Whatever do you mean, Mr. Sholmes? For hours I have bowed. For days even. Through the night I have endeavored, to no avail. That sound, my tone, is lost. That brilliant, clear, unwavering tone. Gone forever. No more recitals of unbridled emotion. Well, you haven't been practicing much lately, have you, Hurley? Don't worry, I'm sure it will come back to you in time. Heed my words, Mr. Naruhodo. The goddesses of arts are fickle. One day they bestow genius on a man, the next, they unmercifully withdraw it. Not thrown over, but yeeted under the carriage. Oh dear. Ah, why is this happening to me? If they take the turn I have for the violin from me,
What is left, for pity's sake? What is left? I mean, your excellent deductions and world-class crime fighting? Crime solving? Deduction, perhaps? Isn't that what you're known for? Mr. Sholmes, I don't like to pry, but... your desk looks rather empty today. I know that feel, Sholmes. Well done, Mrs. Sato. Your observational skills do you credit. Oh no, Mr. Sholmes. They pale in insignificance when compared to yours. You'd struggle not to notice, wouldn't you? You mean Hurley's great analytoscope? That's at Windy Banks now. Being horrible at something sucks. Yeah, I know that feeling. Sorry, it's at a Windy Bank? No, Windy Banks. The pawnbrokery. Pawn? What? You mean you pawned off that enormous machine of yours? It has some considerable value, you see. Quite undeservingly. But isn't it a very important machine for your work? I do wish you hadn't consulted us if your situation had become so desperate. I should have gladly passed what little income I have to you. Dear madam, things are far from desperate. But the pawnbroker has your wonderful machine. How could it be anything but desperate? Making use of a pawnbrokery is quite ordinary here in London, I assure you. It is? Doesn't sound ordinary at all. It would seem that neither of you fully understand how pawnbrokering works. Pawnbroking, excuse me. Oh, what's to understand exactly? Boop, 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 boop. What did you mean when we said we didn't fully understand how pawnbroking works? To the people of London, pawnbrokeries are akin to banks. Banks? On Mondays, merchants relinquish their finest jackets and trappings to their pawnbroker of choice. With the money they receive in return, they are able to trade happily through the week. And then on Saturdays, they go to recover their things using the money they've earned. I had no idea. This has been a fascinating lesson for us. Everyone does it, you see, especially people in inner London. And should they have money to spare, they would purchase another fine jacket. Not to wear, obviously, but to pawn, should the need arise. Oh, how ingenious. So whenever we... excuse me. So whenever we have something that's getting in the way, we leave it at Windy Banks, you see. Pawnbrokery can be thought of as an extremely secure vault. Who would have thought that even pawnbrokers are different here in Great Britain? Of course, you have to watch Hurley with it. Sometimes he pawns things he really shouldn't. Don't you, Hurley? What does it matter? The world is dead to me now. Cat. Oh, what was that? Wagahai? What was that? Oh no. Wagahai's tangled up in your violin. I think he thinks it's a toy. No! What's he doing to it? Oh dear, Mr. Sholmes' precious violin. Why should I care? What? I shouldn't be surprised. If the cat is more accomplished. If the cat is a more accomplished musician than I am now. Imagine Ghost of Sato seeing Edgeworth and just saying, another Van Zeeks, I guess. Mr. Sholmes really is in poor spirits, isn't he? Well, anyway, I'll put it back where it lives. Shall I, Hurley? Out of the cat's reach, if possible. Maybe we should assess the damage.
Oof, that is beat up. I repaired my violin a few years ago, but I never played it after that, so it's probably ruined again. Shit. I have a violin and a ukulele, and I can't play either. I used to be able to play the violin, I forgot. It's a Stradivarius, one of the finest violins in the world, made by the renowned Italian luthier, Antonio Stradivari. Oh, I see. It doesn't really look like anything special to me. I happened upon it covered in dust, languishing in a pawn shop down a nondescript back alley. The broker had no idea of its value, so I was able to purchase it for a mere 55 shillings. How honorable of you. And until today, it has been my faithful companion in every great Paganini-inspired performance I have made. I ask you, is there reason to live in a world devoid of music, to tolerate this blenched existence? Is there? No, there is none! Mr. Sholmes. What, dear madam, what? My thoughts are preoccupied with fancies of release from this dull routine. Well, it's about the violin. It looks very different to normal, don't you think? Hmm? What do you mean, Mrs. Sato? Oh, Susie's right. Yes, the tone of the wood is completely different. And that's not all. I'm sure there was no crack here before. Wait, it's not even the right size, is it? What's this? I'm terribly sorry to have to tell you this, Mr. Sholmes, but that instrument isn't a violin at all. Then what? I believe it's a viola. It's an entirely different instrument called a viola. What? What? Oh, Mr. Sholmes, are you alright? Oh, he flailed back there. You're right. You are quite right. This isn't my faithful Stradivarius. When are we getting to the part where the case starts here? So what, pray, is this piece of stringed flotsam? Not your faithful performing partner, then. I see what must have happened. You do, Iris? This is just a simple mix-up. Hey, Denaro, thank you for coming back. How you doing? It sounds like Iris might be able to tell us exactly what's happened if we ask her. I mean, we already know. He gave the other one to a pawnbroker, didn't he? I'm doing pretty good. Definitely better than I've been doing the last few days. Do I converse or... Nope, I check. How did the previous case end? It was an accident. The old lady threw a knife out the window and it landed on the victim's back. But the victim did regain consciousness, so no one's dead, thankfully. And then the Japanese guy went back to Japan. This is now 2 months later. What did you mean by a mix-up, Iris? Well, you see, this viola, I mean, was at Windybanks until last week. Yeah, you've heard of Guitar Hero, and I get ready for Violin Villain. So you made that joke the other day when I was doing the Pokemon cards, and it would have been a lot more poignant now. But hey, you made it. Yeah, it was a happy ending. So far, only one case in this game has had a bad ending. 2, technically. But it's weird. I don't know. This game's a lot different from other Ace Attorney games. At the pawnbrokers? Not Mr. Schultz's beloved musical partner. There's a proverb from the East. With which you are no doubt familiar, my dear fellows. Always let a beloved child travel. Hey, you did. You made that joke the other day, and then I made a joke about being... And then my friend made a joke about being a ukulele urologist, because I own a ukulele. Yes, indeed. So you sent your beloved violin to the pawnbrokers and hoped that it would experience personal growth? Oh, what a wonderful idea. Last week I pawned my great analytoscope in order to release my precious instrument. But it would appear my Mr. Windybank mistakenly furnished me with this tawdry fiddle instead. And my ears cannot be deceived by the hollow timbre of this piece of timber. No, but your very sense was deceived by the fact that it just had strings. Pshaw, a fine state of affairs this is. And why I always say, Mr. Naruhodo, never trust a pawnbroker. They will try to fiddle you every time. They played us like a damn fiddle! But earlier you told us you could think of the pawnbrokery as an extremely secure vault. Come, Mr. Naruhodo, dilly-dallying will get you nowhere. Sorry? Crunching your toast with that vacant aspect, fressing your coffee so obtusely. Are you not a little embarrassed by your own conduct, considering the urgency with which we are faced? You must visit Mr. Windybank's brokery at once. Isn't that right, Mr. Sholmes? Precisely, Mrs. Sato, without a moment's delay. But I haven't finished my bacon and eggs. My dear fellow, surely you do not still intend to crunch your bacon with an increasingly vacant aspect, to fress your eggs ever so more obtusely. Alright, say no more. Let's go, then. Don't worry, Bruno. I'd be happy to heat it up for you again later. Windybanks is such a fitting name. Oop, there goes your money, gone like the wind. Yep. Oh, thank you, Iris. As it happens, I am rather curious to see what a British pawnbroker's looks like. Is he gonna say something different now if I show this to him? I must stop you there, Mr. Naruhodo. Unofficially, I may be, but I am nevertheless a professional. I couldn't examine such a humdrum item for anything less than £5. Oh no, I didn't really want you to examine it. I just wanted to ask if, my dear fellow, as a professional consulting detective, I couldn't possibly venture an opinion. For anything less than £5. Are you perhaps hoping to purchase a new telescope in the near future, Mr. Sholmes? Indeed I am. As you know, it has long been an ambition of mine to discover a new star and name it for myself. Because your earthly stardom isn't enough. You know what I've been in the mood for lately? Because I've been watching some people play it, and also because I played a randomizer of it earlier this year. I'm in the mood for another playthrough of Mario RPG. Like a fast one. Like I want to try to, not necessarily a speedrun, but like just blasting through the game in like a couple days. Even though I streamed it for I think like 30 hours the first time I played it. Or the first time I did it on stream. Actually, let me, I could probably check. Not randomized. 7 videos, each about 3 hours long. Though actually a few of these are kind of... Yeah, no, so come out to about 3 hours, so 18 hours to beat it. That sounds about right. It's possible to beat that game way quicker if you know what you're doing. Like a speedrun of that game is like 2 hours long. There's a huge trick to beating it, and so many of the stats and damage in that game is set. Like you know exactly what you're doing. Anyway, we gotta move here. Naruhodo's legal consultancy. I can't believe I almost did that again. Bustling London Street, on which can be found Mr. Sholmes' office and the Windybanks pawnbrokery. There's a large park nearby. What a bustling place. Oh, London is such a fantastic city. That's weird. We've never been here before, and they just let us walk here and examine. It's already been 2 months since we started taking lodgings here above Mr. Sholmes' office. I still can't quite believe it. I never expected things would turn out like this. Oh, I know. To actually be sharing accommodations with the world's greatest detective. If I ever find myself before a court of law now, I will have not one regret. I don't know what you're talking about, but I'd be happy to defend you, of course. I'm not gonna lie, that's making me think of... I shouldn't say this because I don't wanna name drop, but when I went to Texas Furry Fiesta last year with my voice actor friend. It felt really weird to be rooming in the same room as him. I'm like, this guy's on TV. But he is, as he says, just a person. And he's a friend, and I really, very much enjoyed his company. But, like, I mean, this is on a different level. Like, imagine back then, like, Herlock Sholmes being the most popular person in the world, pretty much. With how popular his stories are. Imagine living in the same house as him. Eating breakfast with him every day. That's gotta feel... I mean, after a while, obviously, it wears down a bit, but that's gotta feel weird. Oh, there's really nothing to examine here. Look at all the different things in the window of the shop. Ah, that's Windy Banks, the pawnbrokery. Looks much smarter than a pawnbroker's in Japan, doesn't it? Yes, you're right. I find pawn shops at home rather inapproachable, honestly. It reminds me of a tearfully parting with my favorite fountain pen. I felt so miserable. What doesn't kill us makes us stronger, Mr. Naruhodo. Oh, there's really nothing here, huh? Yeah, it's another dreary London afternoon. Pawnbroker shop on Baker Street. Mr. Sholmes is a regular, it seems. A British pawnbroker shop. How fascinating. Yeah, no, everyone's still a person. Unless you're like one of those uber-rich celebrities that then like, live with your head in the clouds. Being rich is, like, awful. Why is my bitrate so unstable? That's not good. I'm not really dropping frames, but it says I'm unstable. I mean, I don't need a stream to tell me I'm unstable. I've got plenty of reasons to... Okay, now it says it's excellent. Never mind. That is just the way the Twitch is. 15th of April, Windy Banks Pawnbrokery. So this is a British pawnbrokery. British. Oh, it's British, alright. Oh my, there are all sorts of tools and contraptions in here that I've never laid eyes on before. Ah, Sasato-san, and that spark of wonder in your eyes. You can't wait to scour the shelves, can you? I get the impression you enjoy places like this. Oh yes, I don't know why, but seeing such a lot of things I don't understand is a real thrill for me. My dear fellows, let us not forget why we are here. Oh, Mr. Sholmes. We are calling on matters of business, not pleasure. And clearly Mr. Sholmes means business too, judging from the spark of the fury in his eyes. Oh, Mr. Sholmes, sir, welcome back. Did you hear that brazen welcome? Well, yes, we are potential customers after all. We are disgruntled customers, Mr. Naruhodo, and it's time to inform Mr. Windybank of our ire. Sour says Michael is a cute burb, and I agree. Stop making me say stuff like that. I'm going to just start refusing those. Come, the fight is afoot. I love that bow tie. Oh my god, I love this guy's outfit. Holy shit. I love wearing sweater vests and bow ties. They make me look old, and I love it. I used to wear, like, regular ties, but now I'm like, oh man, no, a bow tie's better. What are you doing, my dear fellows? We are not here to browse for interesting curios. We've come to teach this broker a lesson. Oh, but there are just so many fascinating items. Looks as though we'll have to talk Mr. Windybank first before you can explore in here, Mrs. Sato. Sasato versus Miss Franziska. Who would win? Well, Sasato's clearly got more upper body strength. But Franziska, you know, she's got that long range. She's got the long range going on. This guy looks like you? No, he doesn't look like me. I don't have a mustache like that. Not at all. And I don't have... He's got, like, mutton chops. Also, his sweater vest has buttons. Mine does not. I also don't like wearing long-sleeved dress shirts. I've never been a fan of them. I just hate the material they're made out of normally. I'm, like, my skin is very sensitive. I also sweat very easily. Imagine this guy's outfit on your character. I mean, it's not too far off. Like, this is what my character looks like. Though he's not wearing a bow tie there. What am I doing? Talking. Violin. Naturally, we will call this, which I retrieved from you some days ago. Yes. This second-rate fiddle is not my faithful instrument, Mr. Windybank. The color of the wood is different. It has holes in it. It's not even the same size. A wonderful summary of our observations, Mr. Sholmes. I'm so very sorry, sir. How utterly unforgivable of me. An inexcusable mistake for a pawnbroker. There's only one way to make amends. You gonna suggest shooting himself? Oh my fucking god. I shall have to take my own life. I don't think that will be necessary, do you? If I may just say one thing before I pop off. Yes? It was you, Mr. Sholmes, who took it upon himself to remove the item the other day. I believe. Sorry. As I recall, I entered the storeroom to fetch your violin when I heard, "Ah, here it is." You did? They have the same voice, almost. You can always grab the whip. That's true. And when I turned to controvert you, you had taken the viola and left, sir. There we go. Put a spin on it. However, there can be no doubt that the blame lies firmly at my own door for allowing you to leave. So I shall not grumble or grouse any longer. May this guilt die with me. No, stop, my dear fellow. The fault is mine. Phew. It would appear that the fight is over. I do humbly apologize, Mr. Windybank. Evidently my questionable disposition precipitated this tragedy. Did he just, like, friggin' gaslight him? Guilt trip him? Gatekeep? Girl boss? Well, you wouldn't be Mr. Herlock Sholmes without that questionable disposition, now would you? I think Sasada would win. Yeah, that's what I think, too. I do believe you may be right, sir. It's either laugh or cry, I suppose. Just like Family Guy. You are, it must be said, one of my more challenging customers. Judicial assistant sent to Britain on a study tour. She's the epitome of refined... Okay. World famous great detective above whose lodgings Mrs. Sato and I rent our own office and rooms. Extraordinary young girl who lives with Mr. Sholmes. She has a degree in medicine, is the author of a popular series of short stories published in a prominent magazine. Pop Windybank, the proprietor of a pawnbrokery on Baker Street that is regularly patronized by Mr. Sholmes. He has a very great sense of responsibility to his clients. I needn't remind you of the peculiar collection of items you brought through my door in the past. Oh, peculiar items? In the extreme, ma'am. For example, the unpublished manuscript of an eponymous work, the novels of Sherlock Holmes or some such. Oh my, a new full-fledged novel? And unpublished? A story I've yet to read, you mean? Ah, forgive me. Wait, before you die, you must tell me more. Behind every girl boss is a male wife, or another girl boss, or both. Yeah, exactly. I'm the girl boss, and my girlfriend is the male wife. I must know more. Tell me everything. Wow, Sasato is really fired up now. Is there really an unpublished story under this very roof? Well, one day the gentleman here brought an old metal chest, you see. I should like to entrust this to your care for a while, Mr. Windybank. For a chest like that, 1 shilling, sir, not a farthing more.
It houses something of great value indeed. The latest manuscript, recounting the adventures of a one Mr. Herlock Sholmes. I beg your pardon, a manuscript? You wish to deposit a manuscript? Indeed I do, for I am confident it will be quite safe here. And that was that. As such, Mr. Sholmes' latest tale of otherworldly mystery lies dormant in my storeroom.
Mr. Sholmes, is that really true? Sasato could just yeet me and you wouldn't complain. Before we go any further here, I just want to point out something very, very important. Let's keep the Sasato talk very PG. Do I sense that someone doesn't want to talk about this? I continue to pay your fee, do I not? Then kindly continue to store my belongings securely. Of course, sir, of course. They're safe and sound with me, I assure you, on my life. This is all very strange. I wonder, could I ask you something? Ah, gentleman from the east, I see. Yes, that's a sable suit. I suppose I could offer you 6 for it. Without wishing to offend, the tone is somewhat dull. Sorry? Aha! But for your splendid attire, ma'am, 5 guineas, no less! The colors are exquisite, the design exotic, Eastern artistry at its finest, may I say. Oh my, 5 guineas, you say? Why the hell does she look 20? I don't know. I mean, Iris is 10, and she looks like she's like half of Sasato's size. So that might be why. You might be looking at Iris and thinking like, well, Iris is a little girl, Sasato's clearly an adult. Why do I feel as though I've suffered some sort of defeat here? How much is a guinea worth, anyway? 1890s British currency. No, not how many pounds to dollar. God. Ass. In each case, a guinea meant an amount of 1 pound and 1 shilling, 21 shillings, or 1 pound and 5 pence in decimalized currency. So 1,000 guinea back then was about $1,005. No, sorry, $1,050. And that's apparently enough to buy a mansion in Japan back then. She looks like she could be Franziska's older sister. Not really, she doesn't look like she's related to Franziska at all. Worth 1 pound sterling, equal to 20 shillings. Shilling was a coin worth 1/20th of a pound sterling, or 12 pence. British currency's weird. It's like how in modern day Japan, there is no such thing as 1,000,000 yen. It's 110,000 yens. So it's like a 100 and then followed by the symbol for 10,000. There's no symbol for a million. Actually, I was hoping to ask you about your business. I've heard it said that pawnbrokers are used rather like banks here in London. Yes, sir, indeed. Many of my customers utilize the establishment as you describe. I appraise their items and offer them a proportionate loan on 2 months of secure stowage. If in that time they repay the original sum to me plus the agreed interest, their items are happily returned. What happens if they don't pay you the money? Then the items are offered for sale in my shop, as you can see on the shelves behind me. So you never sell items before the 2 months have passed, then? British is weird in general. Yeah. That's right, ma'am, that's right. Which means some considerable responsibility rests on my shoulders. Should a customer's precious belongings be lost, the only recompense is for me to end it all. The very idea, Mr. Windybank, is an absurdity. One should never talk of one's demise so casually. Says the man who was telling us all it was a good day to die only this morning. And let us not forget that I've already helped you to take measures to ensure such a tragedy never occurs. Oh, what sort of measures? I engineered a simple device which Mr. Windybank has installed here in his shop. I call it the Red-Handed Recorder. Is that not so, Mr. Windybank? What was that deep sigh about? What on earth is a red-handed recorder? Use your eyes, my dear fellow. There are two just below the ceiling. I can see what appears to be a camera attached to some sort of timing device. Very astute. It is indeed a camera, furnished with some 100 pieces of celluloid film. And every 30 minutes precisely, the camera automatically records its appearance in this shop. Yeah, I have an example I can show you. Wow, it's even time-stamped. Ah, yes, a print from the camera set to record the activity at the shop counter. Is that a realistic picture of a dog there? That looks like a realistic picture of a dog. Pawn shop is where you can only buy items but sell them. That's just a game shop, yeah. I developed a special type of film so sensitive it produces a crystal clear image, even in darkness. Really? That's extraordinary. Yes, you can clearly see the counter and the door behind it. Look. So you see, were someone to enter the premises with ill intent, his identity would be summarily exposed. Excuse me. But did you not say the photographic prints were taken at 30-minute intervals? Indeed, as you say, my dear madam. Then what if the incident were to occur in between these times? One could only say that would be a cruel twist of fate. Oh, I must confess, your devices have been giving me some cause for distress as of late. I beg your pardon, Mr. Windybank. Surely they are anything but distressing. Reassuring is the word. It's the cost of the film, sir. You most graciously placed not one but two cameras in my shop, after all, which means I must pay for nigh on 100 utterly useless prints every single day. I'm afraid the cost of film will break me before I'm very much older. Nevertheless, a small price to ensure the safety of my preferred pawnbrokery. No. My dear fellows, we are on the verge of an age where safety and security come at a price. Wow, no kidding. Oh, heaven help us. Now then, Mr. Sholmes, allow me to return your precious violin. Ah, the very thing. Thank you, Mr. Windybank. Perhaps this might mark the end of the peculiar items you try to pop, Because if anything were to happen to one of them, this would be the only answer. I really think you ought to stop waving that gun around. Someone could get hurt. Fear not. Sorry. I've only loaded a single bullet, so no one but myself could possibly be harmed. That's not really what I meant. Good day to you, then, Mr. Windybank. It's been a pleasure as always, Mr. Sholmes. So, Mr. Naruhodo, now we can explore at last. Look at this. Look at this lovely, big, shiny box be. That, my dear madam, is a music box. Surely you have seen such things in your own country. Oh my, yes, but I've certainly never seen one so large before. Shall we listen for a while? Ah, what a sublime sound. It's like the music of angels. I've never heard anything like it before in my life. This particular specimen is of a larger variety, commonly found in public houses and restaurants. There is a metal disc inside which the notes are played and recorded, to be played or recorded. Simply by replacing the disc with another, any music you care to imagine can be played. My goodness, what a simply delightful machine. Indeed,
Though their popularity has waned recently with the development of the gramophone, of course.
Ah, science and technology advance at such an overwhelming pace. There seems to be a little door hidden beneath that curtain there, behind that curtain.
That leads to the storage room where Mr. Windybank keeps articles that are currently in pawn.
Ah, I see.
There's nothing of particular interest inside. I certainly wouldn't recommend any larcenous activity.
Excuse me, recommended or not, it's not something I intend to do.
There is but one key, and Mr. Windybank keeps it in his pocket at all times. Before he sleeps, he places it into a small pot, which he slides under his pillow.
How on earth did you know about that, Mr. Sholmes?
I am a detective, sir. It is my business to know what others do not. I am frequently assailed by information I neither care for nor wish to retain.
I had to deal with some rude customers who were angry because I couldn't lower a price. Oof. Mr. Sholmes, you are a wonder, and the prime suspect of this pawnbroker is ever burgled. Look at that enormous ledger open in the counter there.
Mr. Windybank is, if nothing else, very particular about recording the items he accepts.
He'd have to be, otherwise he'd get himself into all sorts of trouble. Which might explain the thing that catches my eye far more than the ledger. This revolver here.
Do not entertain even a single thought of pilfering an article herein, my dear fellow. I assure you, Mr. Windybank would not hesitate to draw that weapon with the speed belying his portly size.
Oh, you don't mean he'd... Took some patience for you not just to eat them.
Blow his brains out, indeed, in recompense for his blunder.
Oh my. But in any case, of course we would never do such a thing. How could you even suggest it? Let's still do that. What an assortment of things there are on the shelves here. Crockery, footwear, clocks, and watches. Almost anything you care to imagine.
Those are forfeited items offered for sale by the pawnbroker.
What does that really mean, though?
When you pawn or colloquially pop an item, the broker loans you money against its worth. He stores the item for an agreed period of time, after which the loan must be repaid. If not, he is free to display it in his shop for sale at a price of his choosing.
Oh yes, now you've explained it. Now that you've explained it, I'm noticing little price tags on everything.
Of course, simply by paying the agreed interest on the loan, one can extend the period of safekeeping. So you may pawn that black garb of yours without fear, my dear fellow.
My treasured university uniform? Never. It embodies my student spirit. Why the hell are you buying clothes at the soup store?
Why are you buying clothes at the soup store?
And then Panera Bread made, soup-themed shirts. And they're like, finally, closed the soup store.
It's just more soup!
That's not a calendar you could easily miss, is it? 15th of April. Today's date.
Yes, that's not for sale, I must point out. It's an Eastern-style page-a-day calendar. Every night at midnight, I tear off the front page to reveal the following day's date. A perfect calendar for a tearaway fellow such as yourself, Mr. Windybank.
And who was it that walked out of here with the wrong violin before?
Well, when we agreed storage period has passed without repayment, articles are forfeited, you see. So I have to keep a close eye on that date. It's something of a pawnbroker's obsession, you might say.
Oh yes, I could see you're very dedicated to your job. Whenever I see calendars like that, I think of the episode of Space Dandy where they go to Meow's home planet and they can't. The day keeps repeating like Groundhog Day, and they can't flip the page over on the calendar. I like that episode. The episode's full of Meow species, and Meow species is very cute. The Beetlejuiceans. Look at this. Whatever could this be used for? I have no idea. There's a small catch just here, look. going to open it, aren't we? Oh my, that's amazing! And it's some sort of spring-loaded mechanism. Which we'll never manage to put back the way it was before. Hmm? What are you two doing? What? Us? Nothing. No, nothing at all. Whatever this device is, it seems to have a pair of little windows to look through. I feel as though I've seen something rather similar to this elsewhere. Oh, you've seen Space Dandy? Nice. I watched that when it was airing on Adult Swim. I remember it aired at the same time that my ceiling was leaking, and I had to deal with that, and that was great. That was absolutely great, and by great I mean awful, but now I always associate that with Space Dandy. Cowboy Bebop. I love Cowboy Bebop. I love how Space Dandy is just Cowboy Bebop, but silly. Like, that is my favorite part of that show. That's just like the same premise, but like, balls to the wall. Now, what do you suppose this rather enormous machine does? It seems to have two little windows for looking through. Allow me to enlighten you, my dear fellows. What are you looking at is a stereoscope. A stereoscope? Fascinating. It is aptly named, I assure you. Look through the eyepieces and see for yourself. Oh, I should be delighted to. Excuse me a moment while I just have a look. Just before you do, there is something I should point out. My dear fellows, in order to see the image properly, stereoscopically as it were, you will need to be cross-eyed. However, if that is beyond you, it is of little consequence today. Alright, then I'm going to try it. Ah! Mr. Naruhodo, you must see, at once! Which Cartoon Network? Oh, right, where you live they probably don't have it. Cartoon Network here and Adult Swim. Because the thing is, Adult Swim in America is part of Cartoon Network, like the corporate part of it, like the part located in Georgia. And thusly, so is Toonami. I know that there is a Toonami Asia, but like they have completely different lineups than what they air in America. So it's a bit different over there. I know that the English dub of some shows in the Asian versions are different, which is weird because they still use American voice actors. Like, I know there are two versions of the Dragon Ball Z Kai dub. One for English markets and one for the Asia English markets. And even though they both use common voice actors for American audiences, one is exclusive to Asia, which is weird. I'm not sure how that works and why, but it's very interesting. Mr. Naruhodo, you must see at once. Oh, alright then. So I need to be cross-eyed, like I'm trying to look at my own nose. What the? I don't believe it! It's just a photographic print, but it seems like you'd reach out and touch it! I'm sure that made a lot more sense looking at it on the 3DS. That is a shame that that gag unfortunately does not pull through. Yes, they do still have Adult Swim here. Adult Swim originated here. It's on every night from I think 10 p.m. till 5 a.m. And then on Saturdays they air Toonami instead, which is they air Adult Swim and then Toonami, which is all anime. And then Cartoon Network is on the rest of the day. Yes, the sense of depth is startling, is it not? Stereoscopes are one of London's many fads. They are often found in little stalls in the park. People queue for hours to see them. Why? Why are people meddling with such black magic? It is no magic, my dear madam. It is, well, far too complicated to explain at present. We shall save this lesson for another day. Honestly, the only thing I watch on normal Adult Swim right now is Tuca and Birdie, which Season 2 was excellent. I'm so glad they're making a Season 3. And I know this is gonna make eyes roll, but Rick and Morty. I do enjoy Rick and Morty. It is a fun show. To be fair, I enjoyed it back when Season 1 aired and no one knew what the fuck it is, and before the fan base went out of control for it. So, whatever. I don't pay attention to the fan base. I just watch the show and enjoy it. What? Only tuppence for it? That ain't fair and you know it. This article's barely worth a penny, miss. I cannot offer more. Wait, what? Sounds like there's an argument brewing over by the counter. Come on, that can't be right. Have you had a proper butcher's at it? Oh, it's probably what's her name, Gina? I've seen all I need to see, young girl. Yep, it's her. I knew it. Wait, don't we know? I'm sure I recognize her. Oh yes, it's the young lady from Mr. McGilded's trial 2 months ago. Gordon Bennett, you lot! Hello, Miss Lestrade. I hope you've been well. Eh? What? You remember me then, do ya? How does she still have that gun? I thought Iris took it back. Well, I remember being completely surrounded by smoke, that's for sure. And also, you let people tamper with the crime scene. I'm not unconvinced she's not unrelated to the girl from the first case that, killed the guy in Japan. Which, again, the victim of the first case, his name was John H. Wilson, which is Iris's last name as well. So, there's something going on there. There's something cooking up here. So what are you doing in here? That gal in the photograph looks like the maid. Oh. Huh. Down and out like the rest of us? Nothing to eat? Gonna pop that black weasel? Sorry, coat, have ya? What is it about this black uniform that makes everyone comment on it? Oh, good day, unless I'm much mistaken. You would be the young pickpocket who stole our experimental smoke grenade launcher. Ah, Mr. Sholmes. So, you have something of value to pawn, do you? Allow me to see the article, and I shall negotiate with Mr. Windybank on your behalf. Pull the other one. I don't need no help from some stuck-up D. Get out of my business. Go on, or I'll make trouble for you. As you wish, Miss Lestrade. I would happily remove myself from your presence. He's really done it. He's gone. I am sorry, but as I said, there really is no room for negotiation here. What is that thing he has in his hand? Some kind of metal disc? And you! Go on! Leave me alone! Oh, Miss Lestrade, just pretend we aren't here. We shan't be offended in the slightest. Sasato-san can really stand her ground when she wants to. Whatever. Mr. Windybank, what exactly is this metal disc that Miss Lestrade has brought in? It seems to have hundreds of tiny little bumps on its surface. Oh, this is a music disc, you see, for use inside a music box. In a music box? What, you don't even remember what a music box is? You Eastern lot ain't too savvy, eh? I know what a music box is, I just never seen one of those discs before. Small protrusions on the middle disc encode the tune to be played by the music box. You simply insert the disc and set the machine going and beautiful music plays. Yeah, she has a Cockney accent. I gotta try my best there. It's so incredible. Tell us, what tune is on this disc? Well, I'm afraid I couldn't tell you that. There are so many different types of music box, you see. British-made, German, Swiss. I have no way of knowing which particular machine this disc was made for. Oh, I see. And that's it in a nutshell. I wouldn't have any customers for an item like this, even if the young lady forfeited it. I'm already offering more than I should at a penny. That's a packet of lies. He told me he did. He said it was, well... He? Who? Never you mind. It ain't just right, that's all. That disc's worth good money. I know it is. I'm, like, slipping slightly out of it. but, like, I can't help myself. Well then, you'll have to try your luck at another pawnbroker's, won't you? Ah! She's been in before, of course, this little tatterdemalion. I see. And brought some dubious articles or other with her every single time, I might add. Dubious? What are you trying to say? I'm an honest customer, me. So, is there something dubious about the disc she brought in today? Well, if only it were that simple. Sorry, what do you mean? What she actually brought in was a storage ticket. Ah, a storage ticket, so... Miss Lestrade has actually come to redeem an article from you today, is that right? Yeah, that's right. A girl like me has got a lot of stuff that a girl like me has got a lot of stuff what needs storing. Alright, yes, that's definitely dubious. The article in question would have been forfeited at midnight tonight. But as she gave me the ticket for it and repaid both the loan and the interest, I was obliged to return the article to her. What was the article? Do tell us, Mr. Windybank. The little scamp is wearing it, ma'am. It's the overcoat she redeemed. Oh. What? What's wrong with that? It fits, don't it? I mean, it's mine, so of course it does. That really slipped into, Boston right there. We're going all over the world with Gina. So what about this disc, then? How does that come into all this? I can't do accents very well. Oh, the disc is something else. A new article to pawn if the girl and I can agree on a price. I'm confused. I thought you said that Miss Lestrade brought in a storage ticket today. It's really quite simple. Yes, the child brought me a storage ticket and the money owed on it, as you say. For this heavy black coat, which you returned to her care, as I had understood it. That's right, yes. And rather unsurprisingly, as soon as the little ragamuffin put the thing on, she went rifling through the pockets. Oh, you mean... What? Don't you know it's rude to stare at a lady? Ah, I see. So it came from the pocket of the overcoat, did it? If you mean this disc, then yes, exactly, ma'am. And she immediately tried to pawn it. For quite a high price as well. This is all rather suspicious, I think. Give it up. I'm just trying to pawn something like anyone else would. Miss Lestrade, may I ask who deposited the overcoat here in the first place? Well, me. It doesn't really appear to be your size. Me old man! It's me old man's, ain't it? Is it Miss Lestrade? Or is it Miss Lestrade? Yes, this definitely is all rather suspicious. Out of my way, please. Who is this? Who is this? Oh, wait a minute. What happened to the people... Okay. What... When I was examining the last case, wasn't there like a jester, like a king's jester and someone else in the room like talking? What was up with those two? They just disappeared. Who's this picture postcard English gentleman? Good day to you, ladies, gentlemen. What's your problem, eh? There's no problem as long as you remove yourself. I have a matter to discuss with the proprietor. And if you intend to make a problem of it, I shall see you outside, little girl, for the hiding you deserve. Look, ain't it obvious? I ain't done talking with him yet. If you think you're such a gent, you should know how to wait in line. Well, you are an impudent little brat, aren't you? As well as a pickpocket. Eh? Who are you? How'd you know who I am? The question is, how do you not know who I am? You haven't the courtesy to remember the faces of your victims, it seems. What? You mean from you? Broker? Yes, sir. I believe this filthy pocket thief has just redeemed an article from you, no? Yes, The article in question belongs to me. I demand for it to be returned at once. Oh my. Now that's a lie. What are you trying to pull? Give me back my overcoat, you wastrel. And needless to say, any music box discs too. What is this JoJo-ass pose this guy is doing? Like he's dressed like William Zeppeli. No, you can't have it. You just can't. That part did take place in Britain. Part 1. It's me old man's, or it was. Now it's mine. Goodness, Mr. Naruhodo. This is a very awkward situation. Yes, I think perhaps we should hear both sides of the story in a little more detail. Miss Lestrade, is what the gentleman is saying. What do you think? It's all lies, ain't it? Obviously. I swear on my life, I never laid eyes on the dandy before. Let's hear it now, you little ragamuffin. You stole it, didn't you? That ticket you brought in here just now. No, I swear it. I swear to God. It was barely an hour ago. I was walking along the street, minding my own business, when this little gutterling ran into me. I knew at once what had happened. I've been robbed yet again, I thought to myself. Those wretched pickpockets. Yet again. Oh yes, as you could see, I'm a man of impeccable style. This isn't the first time I've been targeted by these back-slum scoundrels. Now then, relinquish my overcoat. Come along now, Miss Lestrade. Let's give the gentleman his coat back. If you're going to cause trouble, I shall have no choice but to call the police. Hold on, why does everyone think it's me? Just look at this dandy cove, and you think I'm a dodgy one? I'm sorry, but no one's going to believe you. Well, what about evidence? Yeah. Where's your evidence that I've stolen something, eh? Come on, let's see it. Oh, I have evidence, naturally. You what? When is the case starting here? Evidence that the article Miss Lestrade redeemed actually belongs to this gentleman. Of course, we need only consult Mr. Windybank's ledger to know the truth. We'd be able to look up the name of the person who deposited the article in the first place. Yes, brilliant! I'm very sorry, but I'm afraid that won't be possible. Oh? I never ask customers' names. That's a strict policy of mine. But why not? Well now, as you can imagine, some of my customers have circumstances to consider. A great many of them prefer to maintain their anonymity. Yes, I see. But then how can you know if an article belongs to the person asking to redeem it? Oh, it's quite simple. Good sir, might I trouble you for the watchword associated with the article in question? Of course, it's... If he's so discerning, wouldn't he just remember this guy? Professor. Yes, that's right. And all the evidence we need. This gentleman is the rightful owner of the article, without doubt. A watchword? Interesting. So about these watchwords, Mr. Windybank. As I just explained, I never ask customers' names when they deposit items with me. There are many reasons why certain customers would like to keep their activities secret. That wasn't exactly a subtle glance at Mr. Sholmes now, was it? Great detectives have no dark secrets, none at all. Yes, well, anyway, that's why I always ask for a watchword whenever I accept a new article. In many ways, it's like the secret combination of numbers used to unlock a vault. The date of deposit, a description, and watchword are uniquely identify each item. And of course, then I give storage the ticket to the customer. When someone comes to redeem something, I ask for the ticket and the watchword. And if that someone tells you the correct watchword, you return the article. That's right, sir. Yes. Just as soon as the requisite fee is paid. And I have supplied you with the information you require already. But for the avoidance of doubt, the article in question is an overcoat deposited 2 months ago on 15th February. With the watchword of Professor. All perfectly correct information, sir. But, ow! Really, this is beyond a joke now. There's no further room for doubt. Excuse me, but who are you? One would expect the inquirer to introduce himself first. Though clearly you are not British, so perhaps our ways are foreign to you. Oh, sorry, yes, we're from the Empire of Japan. We're studying here. Oh, yes, Japan. I've heard talk of the place. Its inhabitants live on some fiery, brown-colored soup, dressed up with exotic spices. You might be thinking of somewhere else. What was that theatrical gesticulation about? Oh, what was that theatrical gesticulation about? Perhaps, anyway, if you are a gentleman, sir, you offer your own name first before inquiring after the name of another. Of course, yes, I am Ryunosuke Naruhodo. I'm a lawyer. Well, a student of law, actually. Law? Law. My name is Sato Mikotoba. I am Mr. Naruhodo's assistant. I see. My name is Benedict. Yes, Eggert Benedict. Really? We're making this. We're really getting on the nose with this, huh? His name is literally Eggs Benedict. Enchanté. He's so refined in how he holds himself and how he speaks, but that name is suspicious. Suspicious. Now, to the matter at hand. Whoops. Oh, whatever. Young English gentleman with an aloof and high and banded manner. He appeared at the Windy Banks pawnbroker accusing Gene of stealing his redemption ticket. Gene Lestrade, young pickpocket we first met at the trial 2 months ago. She and Iris have become firm friends since. Ah. My overcoat. Return it at once to someone with the style to carry it. Off. Oh. Every move he makes, every breath he takes, I can't stand watching him. So let that be an end to the matter. And thank you for your custom, Mr. Egbert Benedict, sir. With such reasonable rates of interest, I may even decide to come back. That's why I ate grown-ups. Just because I'm a diver, everyone thinks that makes me a liar. And the contents of the coat pockets, if you please, broker. But of course, sir, here is the disc for you. Just this one. Pardon, sir? I was expecting another. That is, I deposited another. Another disc. Oh dear. I regret to inform you, sir, that what was deposited with me was merely the overcoat. The disc happened to be in one of the pockets, but I completely was unaware of it until now. So, Gutterling, you're hiding more of what's rightfully mine, aren't you? Says who, eh? I don't know nothing about it. Very well. Then I shall bid you farewell. Say goodbye to style. Wait a minute, that disc is mine. What the? What do you think you're doing, you little tramp?
You've drawn blood, you filthy animal!
Oh my, yes, there's blood on the disc. It's because of all those sharp little bumps. He must have scratched his finger on them. He's wearing gloves. I found it first, alright? I mean, it belonged to me, old man. So you're not having it. Oh, you take it. Me? If I hang on to it, they'll have it off me again. So you keep hold of it. Miss Lestrade, why is this disc so important to her? The metal disc used to play music in a mechanical music box. The piece of music which remains identified is stored on the disc by means of small protrusions. You there in the black livery? For McGilded? Oh shit. Look at all the little bumps on the disc. They're so tiny. Yes, the protrusions are called pins, and they pluck the teeth of the comb to make notes. And just on the edge, there's a small amount of blood. Yes, the blood of the mysterious Mr. Eggert Benedict. When Miss Lestrade tried to grab the disc from him, the pin scratched his fingers, it seems. Like when you're grating some daikon radish and accidentally catch your finger. Ouch, just thinking about it hurts. It puts me off eating radish. Oh, there's a little scrap of paper stuck on the reverse side of the disc. Look. And a scribbled word or two. It looks like somebody's name. For McGilded. McGilded? It couldn't be. But it is, Mr. Naruhodo. A name I shall never forget for as long as I live. But why? Why is his name on this? On the reverse side it reads, For McGilded. Hand that disc over to me at once, please. No, don't! He's lying! Grown-ups are all liars! What do I do now? How am I going to resolve this? I can just leave if I want to. Mr. Windybank is clearly at a loss here. You have to do something about this before he reaches for that revolver of his. Miss Lestrade is really looking daggers at that mysterious gentleman. We need to do something to calm things down before she loses control and attacks him again. Look at those piercing eyes. He's clearly in no mood to talk. We have to do something quickly before this mysterious gentleman leaves to fetch the police or something. Look at Mr. Windybank watching diligently over his shop. There's still so many things I'm curious about. But somehow I don't really feel like this is the right time to be browsing. Calming this fraught situation must be our first priority. And I'm fairly certain that we could find just the great thing we need among the articles here in this shop. Mr. Sholmes. See, it'd be funnier if they didn't reveal that he was over there and I had to look over there like in the other chapter. What are you examining with such keen interest there? As you enjoy a bar of caramel, I see. So, you found me at last, Mr. Naruhodo. Sorry? After that young pickpocket sent me on my way, I was forced to lurk in the shadows. Cruelly ostracized as the rest of you partook in that jovial atmosphere of fellowship. I had nothing to occupy my mind, but was too ashamed to let society see what my downfall had done to me. So feigning mock interest, I pretended to examine the tedious trinkets in this desolate place. Whilst, as you shrewdly observed, gnawing on the only friend I have left, this 7% solution of caramel. Oh man, I could go for caramel now. It's a Sholmes caramel on it. Pray, do you claim to understand the depths of my despair, Mr. Naruhodo? But how could you? I was so lonely, so desperately lonely. Then why on earth didn't you rejoin the conversation? Things have gone from bad to worse here, you know. Yes, I overheard much of your conversation. Or rather, in my craving for human contact, my ears devoured every word that was uttered. You were really sad, weren't you? Poor Mr. Sholmes. I feel simply awful for you. It would seem that my inferences are correct. Oh. Surely you're not about to tell us that you've solved the entire case once again.
My dear madam, sometimes I wonder, were my genes for deduction to be commoditized, how much could I pawn it for?
It seems Mr. Sholmes has had another flashes of his... It seems Mr. Sholmes has had another of his flashes of inspiration. But who knows if it will help resolve the situation between Miss Lestrade and the mysterious gent. What's the right thing to do here? Yeah, let's listen to the deduction. We got nothing else to do. Well, Miss Lestrade, it would appear you find yourself missing of something of it would appear you find yourself in something of a predicament. What in the blue blazes have you been, eh? Pardon? When a lady's in trouble, a true gent's supposed to be there to help. Straight away. Not an hour later. Harsh. Excuse me. And who, pray tell, are you? Mr. Egbert Benedict? You have... Wow, I am making way too many noises, I'm sorry. You have, in my eyes, a veritably encyclopedic array of curiosities about your person. Nevertheless, there are two immovable conclusions I have drawn. I beg your pardon. The first is this. The true reason for your visit to the pawnbrokery today is something you have not yet revealed. And the second is this. A considerable crime is in contemplation, one you will orchestrate with intent to steal a vast sum of money. Well, Mr. Benedict, what say you to my deductions? How? He's turned white as a hard-boiled egg. It would seem that once again, Mr. Sholmes has made a flawless deduction. Just who do you think you are, sir? Ah, yes, as I'd hoped. That is precisely the pained expression I was looking for. So, shall we begin? The time has come for yet another Herlock Sholmes's Logic and Reasoning Spectacular. Mystery Man's aim. First of all, we must ask ourselves on what business you have ventured to this pawnbrokery today. You claim to have followed this pickpocket here, having the redemption ticket stolen from you on the street. But that is most certainly a lie. The real truth is something quite different. As revealed by that which you hold in your hand. Yes, what brought you to this shop in the first place is the staff recruitment flyer. That piece of paper in your hand is a staff wanted advertisement for this very shop. And even the most unobservant would soon realize that this is a man of your appearance, and a man of your appearance has no need of such employ. In other words, there is some ulterior motive for your actions. The cane which you unwittingly clutched to your person exhibits an incontrovertible contradiction. What utter rot! I've had this cane for years. The contradiction of which I speak is, of course, the missing ferrule. The end of any walking cane would be terminated with a metal ferrule to protect the wooden tip. And yet, any detailed analysis shows the wooden tip of the stick to be utterly bare. Therefore, there is only one conclusion. The rod that you hold in your hand, which appears to be a walking cane, is in fact no cane at all. You recoil, sir. Is something wrong? And in your recoiling, you inadvertently facilitate the answer of the next conundrum to present itself. Namely, what is the truth behind this rod you bear? Yes, your reaction betrays the truth. The handle, which you evidently would like to conceal, is the key to understanding this riddle, you see? And the moment I saw it, my suspicions were aroused. What walking cane demands such a stout handle? I mused. Mused I? But of course, as I said, there is no walking cane. No, that rod is the broken handle of a shovel. What? Are you insane? And now, having determined the undeniable truth The conclusion is queer. Queer, wow. Like me, the conclusion is queer. And now, having determined the undeniable truth, the conclusion is clear. Your true motive for coming here was to take employment at this establishment in order to excavate the ground beneath the premises. What a calculated crime you have conceived, sir. A wickedly calculated crime. To tunnel underneath the pawnbrokery. Topic 2. Great crime. Now, Mr. Benedict, let us continue. For we must expose the details of this elaborate crime you have in the planning. This is utterly absurd. You suggest that I, a gentleman, intend to excavate the ground beneath this pawnbrokery with a broken shovel. What on earth do you propose I could expect to find there? Some long-forgotten treasure, I suppose. Save for such a fanciful theory, what possible reason could I have to do as you say? Oh, but there's ample reason. As you are too well aware, Mr. Benedict. Ah, and your furtive glance is more telling than I could have hoped. What? Let us consider what would motivate a man to infiltrate a shop such as this and covertly dig beneath its floor. The answer is revealed by the council notice on the counter to which your eyes were inadvertently drawn. The latter gives notice of public works to be carried out in the local area. And according to the enclosed plan of the upcoming sewage works, beneath this shop runs a sewer that adjoins another, one that runs under the bank of the opposite side of the road. This madness has entered the sewers now, has it? By excavating the ground beneath our feet, you would gain access to the waterway. That flows very close proximity to the great vault of the financial institution opposite. What are you? In summary, sir, you devised a master plan to pull off an elaborate bank robbery by dint of the underground tunnels. Master plan? Which brings us to the final chapter in this lurid scheme. With what plunder did the thief hope to make off from the underground vault of the bank? Are you quite serious? Having consulted with Scotland Yard some days ago, I happen to have the answer. But naturally, the answer is no secret to you, is it, Mr. Benedict? I have no idea what you're talking about. Allow me to present a rather interesting piece of evidence. You see, this picture postcard tells us all we need to know. A postcard of the Great Exhibition. I'm afraid you quite lost me. Hey, welcome back. Currently in the final stages of preparation, the Great Exhibition will soon be underway, and the government has provided extra funds to complete its centerpiece, the Crystal Tower. I think you need to calm down because your blood pressure is getting high. Oh, is work just being terrible? That's me every day, so don't worry about it. Funds that currently sit in the vault of the bank on the other side of this road. Pardon? Yes, the considerable crime that you have been contemplating is the theft of that which sits in the vault of that bank. The special reserve funds for the Great Exhibition. Of course, that is top secret police information, so keep it under your hat, please. To steal the Great Exhibition's reserve funds. Is blurry vision a good thing? No, why would you think that's a good thing? Thus concludes Sherlock Holmes' great deduction of this pawnbroking puzzle. Sorry, I'm yawning a lot. Mr. Sholmes. Well, Mr. Naruhodo, an impressive upbeat deduction for Detective Rack loneliness, wouldn't you agree? Was it true what you just said about the bank over the road and what it has in the vault? Indeed, though few know of its existence, it is one of the government's most closely guarded secrets. Gregson told me in the strictest confidence. But you just announced it to everyone here, rather loudly in fact. Ah, and if it's such a big secret, how would Mr. Benedict have come to find out about it? There can be only but one explanation for that. Clearly it is because
The man is a criminal.
But what if he didn't know anything about the money in the vault? If he is a criminal, as you say, then buying a brand new shovel is sure to be the first thing he does now that you've revealed the secret. A squawkjection. Oh. Or if he doesn't, maybe Mr. Windybank will. He already has plenty of shovels in here, after all.
Oh my life, I assure you I'm not some... Oh, it's so unscrupulous.
Wrong voice.
Well, hopefully this has taught you a valuable lesson. Sensitive information must be handled with the utmost of care. One can never be sure that someone privy to secrets won't disclose them, and once the word is out, it's out.
I think perhaps I'll think twice before confiding in you next time, Mr. Sholmes.
An excellent idea, Mr. Naruhodo, an excellent idea. Ha 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 ha.
Well then, Mr. Naruhodo, you know what to do, I'm sure. Whoa, 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 whoa. Phone. Don't make noises. Yes, let's listen to the great deduction again and see if we can massage it into shape.
Very well then, let us start once more from the beginning. Excuse me. Of Herlock Sholmes' magnificent logic and reasoning spectacular. Blah, 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 blah. Course correction. First of all, we must ask ourselves on what business you ventured into this pawnbrokery today. You claim to have followed this pickpocket here, having had the redemption ticket stolen from you on the street. But that is most certainly a lie. The real truth is something quite different.
Why am I reading? I'm not supposed to do that. I gotta take the opportunity to not read and just let the text scroll. So in Mr. Sholmes' reasoning, Mr. Benedict came here in order to apply for a job so he could dig down to the floor. Yes, in an attempt to tunnel into the sewers to gain access to the money in the vault and of the bank across the road. But he wouldn't get very far with a broken shovel, would he? No, I think it's fair to say his motives lie elsewhere. The question is, where? What did bring Mr. Benedict here at this particular point in time? Its silk top hat is whiter than white. Only an English gentleman can hope to carry off something so bright. But it looks so incongruous with the black overcoat, don't you think? Perhaps it's the latest London fashion. I mean, that's just guesswork, of course. How about it, Mr. Naruhodo? Think you'd look very fetching in a white top hat? Well, you know, I think I might look rather incongruous with my black uniform, so... Yeah. It certainly is a flyer for Mr. Windybank's shop. Let's see. Windybanks wants you, pawnbroker's assistant required. It's an eye-catching advertisement, that's for sure. I've seen the same flyer up here inside the shop, I think. Perhaps Mr. Windybank is always in need of more staff. So Mr. Benedict came here to apply for a job? That's just too hard to believe. That's a proper English gentleman's cane, isn't it? Look at that beautifully polished brass on the handle. Yes, but Mr. Sholmes is right. It's not that sort of handle you usually see on a cane. Perhaps it's the latest London fashion. I mean, that's just guesswork, of course. Perhaps you can adopt a cane, Mr. Naruhodo. It might rather suit you. I have a feeling it might argue with the sword worn around my waist. You miss Cosma? I think we all miss Cosma. How would it have gone down if he was with us, though? Like, that's... would have been very, very different. It's either the top hat, the cane, or the note. Oh, wait a minute, scribbled writing. Oh, look at that scribbled notes on the back of the flyer here. I don't believe it. What is it? Listen to what it says. Name, Gina Lestrade, height 5'2", green cap, scruffy waistcoat, grubby white shirt, blue satchel, ragged. It's a detailed description of Miss Lestrade. Goodness, there's even a sketch of her, hat and all. Although if he showed it to her, she'd fire that smoke grenade launcher in his face for sure. And look, the details of the shop have been written down here too. Windybank's Pawnbrokery, Baker Street. Redemption deadline 15th April. Which is today's date. Why would Mr. Benedict have all that information scrawled on the back of that piece of paper? Info about Miss Lestrade.
Take that!
Maybe we'd be snappy. He would be snappy at Mr. Glass Water Waster Prosecutor. That's not water, that's wine. Oh. Mr. Glass Waster. Wow. What is wrong with me? My brain does not stop to think about the words that I see on the page. I am not a good voice actor. Oof. We all do that? Yeah, I guess so. Yes, what brought you into this shop in the first place is the info about Miss Lestrade. Quite so, my dear fellow. It would appear the writing and sketch on the reverse side of the flyer pertain to the pickpocket Miss Lestrade and to the Mr. Windybank's pawnbrokery here. You originally told us that you had merely given chase after Miss Lestrade stole the redemption ticket from you. Larry butts at such wasted potential. Yeah, he does. But he did become successful, somewhat, in Spirit of Justice when he shows up in the DLC case. He's become a successful children's author, at least. But that, sir, is a thinly veiled lie. It is the information on the back of the flyer that led you here today, by which I mean here to Windybank's pawnbrokery, and today, the redemption deadline of that overcoat. So you waited outside for the young girl matching the description you have written down to arrive. And you have gone to some lengths to hide the reason of your pursuit of Miss Lestrade. In other words, there's some ulterior motive for your actions. The cane, which you unwittingly clutched to your person, exhibits an incontrovertible contradiction. What utter rot! I've had this cane for years. The contradiction of which I speak of is, of course, the missing ferrule. What's a ferrule? It's the metal cap commonly found in the end of a cane, Mr. Naruhodo. The bit that makes that nice clacking sound on the pavement? Yes, exactly, and Mr. Sholmes is right. It appears to be missing on this cane. But it doesn't actually look broken, does it? No, it doesn't. Though the gentleman certainly did recoil when Mr. Sholmes identified the cane as suspicious. In other words, there's some secret about this cane that Mr. Benedict would rather we don't know. Again, not a huge fan of the, Also, I like how you can see the security cameras now. Not a huge fan of the camera here. The left and right don't work right. Initialing. Look here, Mrs. Sato. There's some letters on the handle. Ah, yes, this must be initials, I think. In the West, it's customary for people to engrave their belongings with the first letters of their names. So Hairlock Sholmes would be HS, you mean? That's right. And the initials on this cane, obviously. Oh. AG. Why does it feel as though that's not quite right?
Take that!
The contradiction of which I speak is, of course, the initialing. A most astute observation, wouldn't you say, Mr. Eggert Benedict? We are led to believe, sir, that your initials are EB. Yet, in a most possessive manner, you have in your grasp a cane bearing the initials AG. An incontrovertible contradiction indeed. Would you not agree? No, you're wrong. This cane isn't. You said before that you had a cane for years. Or you had that cane for years, excuse me. So don't try to tell us that you just borrowed it from a friend or found it in the park. In short, though you hold yourself to be a gentleman, you have withheld your true name. let's consider the bare bones of what happened here. Miss Lestrade redeemed that fine-looking overcoat. Now a mysterious man has appeared, introducing himself with a fake name, and claiming that the overcoat belongs to him. But we know that it actually identified Miss Lestrade from a written description. You know, I've never watched, You might not know that meme. No, I know it. I know that meme perfectly, actually. That's Deja Vu. From, Initial D. Wait, no, it's not. Oh, those are two different songs. See, I've never watched Initial D. There you go. Excuse me. You know that he actually identified Miss Lestrade from a written description, which suggests that everything else he's told us is untrue. So what we need to do here is somehow prove the overcoat cannot possibly belong to him. Possibly belong... When I said possibly belong to him, there was something very, like, amateur about it. I felt very upset hearing that coming out of my mouth. Oh, that's not his coat. Look, it ripped. It's too small on him. Oh, the seam on that shoulder there is coming apart. Look. So it is. Do you know, a moment ago when Mr. Benedict was surprised by something that what he said? I thought I heard him make a rather strange noise. It sounded a bit like a tiny growl. But now I think it was probably the sound of the seam ripping open. If you look closely, it does seem to be a very tight fit. The sleeves are stretched to bursting, and he wouldn't have had hope of fastening it at the front. If he were to run around it, I'm sure the whole thing would have fallen apart. Blech. If he were to run around in it, I'm sure the whole thing would have fallen apart. That I'd like to see. Sorry? So how can we make Mr. Benedict run around? She's really giving this some thought, huh?
Take that!
The split seam, which you evidently would like to conceal, is the key to understanding this riddle, you see. Ugh. Yes, because the overcoat is rather obviously a poor fit. Having forced it over your broad shoulders, the seam is already breaking apart. My suspicions were aroused from the outset. I know what the YouTube viewers think when I make you say things. What YouTube viewers is what I'm gonna say. You know how many views my videos generally get? Like 4. And I'm always like 1 or 2 of them myself, because whenever I upload a video, I always go and make sure it's uploaded properly and in the highest quality after it's done processing. So, not a whole lot. I get random viewers. Some of my random streams get a lot of views, like my, for some reason, my WarioWare and my Golden Sun The Lost Age stream both have several hundred views on them. And I think what happens is people are clicking on them, and the second they realize that I'm talking, they click off, because they think I'm not interesting. Especially since those streams were also very long ago, and I was very much less interesting than I am now. I barely have... If you notice, I don't have a lot of followers on that stream archive. I have more followers on my main channel, which I never upload anything to. When you so baldly lied about your name and so boldly waylaid this pickpocket. Ugh! This catalog of untruths has all been for one very specific purpose. To steal the article that the young girl redeemed for Mr. Windibank. Oh, but what really irks me is this. The considerable crime I initially imagined has been considerably curtailed. To abscond with a redeemed item. You become interesting now. I'm not super interesting. Your name is Sour Cream and you're here to say that the bird is cool. Well, thank you. See, the thing is, like, I used to have a chat feed on my channel, and I've long since disabled. I've also disabled alerts right now, just because of reasons with Twitch. But I mean, if I re-enable the chat box, your stuff would appear on stream. Go ahead and type something stupid. Or something good. I don't know. I turned it off because I was getting too many bots, like advertising, and I wasn't getting a whole lot of people engaging with me. Yeah, there you go. Yeet. It's a little small. What the hell? I have to increase that. Maybe that was how big I had it. Now, Mr. Benedict, let us continue. We must expose the details of this elaborate crime which you have in the planning. I feel weird, like, enabling it and disabling it just to prove I have a lot of people watching me or prove I have people watching me. I don't think anyone cares if they see their chat stuff on the screen if I'm the only one, if, like, they're the only person talking to me. And to be honest, the alerts are pretty much the same way. Like, I don't get a whole lot of alerts, so there's really no reason to keep them on anymore, regardless of the situation with Twitch. But I will say I definitely have some bots in chat that I've had to block, because I know that they're connected to all that bullshit going around right now. Which, by the way, again, I am going to be taking a Twitch break next week when they do that blackout. I'll be here, I'll be gone the 31st and 1st. I may record footage offline of a new game, but we'll see. Power to throw someone in a memely manner. How's that? Is it long enough? Wait, what? Long enough for what? I turned it off again. That is utterly absurd. You suggest that I, a gentleman, designed a wheeze to filter some tawdry article of pawnage? Have you forgotten that I redeemed the article in proper manner, using the watchword? Had I not been the one to deposit it in the first place? How could I possibly have known the relevant details, n'est pas? Oh, but the watchword can be discovered. As you are only too well aware, Mr. Benedict. Ah, and your furtive glance is more telling than I could have hoped. What? Let us consider how one might come to learn a secret watchword relating to the pawned property of another. The method is revealed by the council notice on the counter, which are... No. Incorrect. The direction of the deduction must change rather dramatically now, I think. Yes, no more talk of tunneling into the sewers, which is a pity because it all sounded rather exciting. Anyway, you can't deny that this mysterious gentleman did know the watchword. Yes, Professor. If you didn't know that word, Mr. Windybank would never allow you to redeem the article. Or, looking at it another way, if you did know that word, Mr. Windybank would allow you to redeem the article whether it was yours or not. So the question is, how could this gentleman have found the watchword out somehow? It was clearly the photo of the cat. Notelet. Look at this, Mrs. Sato. It appears to be a memo that Mr. Windybank has scribbled to himself. Let's see. What does it say? Oh, Professor. Mr. Windybank must make a note of all the watchwords his customers gave him right before their eyes. And an alarmingly clear script as well. Oh dear. I don't know where to look. Who knows what other secrets I might see. I like the photos of the animals. I want those to be the stuff. Pawnbroker's revolver. This is Mr. Windybank's gun. Yes, loaded with only one bullet, he said. It would appear that being a pawnbroker is a very life-or-death profession. It might just be this particular establishment. Baker Street Works is the title. Yes, and it does mention sewerage works, as Mr. Sholmes said. Oh! And specifically mentions that tonight's sale at the confectionery shop on the corner won't be affected. Case solving first, confectionery later, Mr. Naruhodo. Curse my overly expressive face. Anyway, it's a notelet. It's the note cutlet. The notelet. The method is revealed by the notelet on the counter to which your eyes were inadvertently drawn. Yes, the broker here follows the same procedure whenever a customer comes to redeem an article. He asks the customer for the watchword and notes down the response uttered on a notelet he has to hand. Then he consults his ledger and confirms whether or not the watchword matches that article in question. I would expect nothing less of a diligent pawnbroker. Sus hat, eh. But his diligence clearly has its disadvantages. What are you talking about? It is increasingly apparent that you were present in the shop before your accusation against Miss Lestrade. In all likelihood, you followed her inside and then observed her talking to Mr. Windybank. When the diligent broker made a note of the watchword, as is common practice, you observed him writing the word Professor on the notelet beside the ledger. And that, sir, was the master plan you devised to steal the pawned article from the young Miss Lestrade. Master plan? Which brings us at last to the final chapter of this lurid scheme. Why would you go to such lengths to redeem that particular article from this pawnbroker? Are you quite serious? For an ill-fitting overcoat, it hardly seems to justify the effort, much less a worthless music box disc. But naturally, you had a very good reason to make them yours, didn't you, Mr. Benedict? I have no idea what you're talking about. Allow me to present a rather interesting piece of evidence. You see, this picture postcard tells us all we need to know. The article we're talking about are the overcoat and the music box disc that was in one of the pockets, which according to Mr. Windybank isn't even worth a penny, and yet this man went to such lengths to steal them. Why? I wonder if perhaps we already have the evidence we need to explain it, Mr. Naruhodo. Could we? Really? I better have a thorough look through all the evidence we've collected so far. For Mr. McGilded, the surname of the man whose innocence you secured in the trial 2 months ago, Mr. Naruhodo. I can never understand how Sholmes can snap his fingers so easily. I can also crack my fingers. Ah, yeah, and my neck. And fun fact, if you squeeze my stomach, that happens. It's the surname of the man you found innocent 2 months ago, Mr. Naruhodo. Yes, a trial I'll never forget. Not at least because of the tragic accident that followed in it with in which Mr. McGilded was killed. But why would his name be on this music box disc? I'm afraid I have absolutely no idea, but one thing seems certain. This surely cannot be a simple coincidence. That's adorable. Look at these little bumps in the disc. They're so tiny. Oh, yeah. No, okay. We've read all this already.
Take that!
I'm not overdoing the squeaks. Don't worry. You see, this music box disc tells us all we need to know. What's that? On the back. It reads, for McGilded. Mr. Magnus McGilded, the unfortunate philanthropist who perished in curious circumstances at the Old Bailey 2 months ago. A prominent man in London, though his loan-mongering demonstrated a distinct lack of scruples. So, you're an associate of his, are you? Or perhaps a subordinate? Mr. McGilded was a man of unusually small stature. In fact, he was precisely the right size for that overcoat you've somehow squeezed yourself into. Ugh. Your true identity remains shrouded in mystery, Mr. Egbert Benedict. Sorry, Egbert Benedict. But the final conclusion is crystal clear. The reason you came to this pawnbrokery today was to retrieve an article left behind by the late Mr. Magnus McGilded. To acquire an item deposited by Mr. McGilded. Solved. Well, Mr. Magnus McGilded, not a name I expected to hear in these circumstances. Oh, I said it like he was speaking to him. Well, Mr. Magnus McGilded, not a name I expected to hear under these circumstances. Mr. Sholmes, I'm afraid there's something very troubling on my mind. Pray tell, Mrs. Sato. Well, according to what Mr. Windybank told us earlier, today was the final day on which the coat could have been redeemed, was it not? Yes, ma'am, that is correct. Today would have been precisely 2 months since it was first deposited. Well, today is 15th April, so 2 months ago today would have been 15th February, sir. That's right. It's all carefully recorded in my ledger. Deposited at 10:30 p.m., I see. What? But that suggests... Yes, 15th February is precisely on the day which the omnibus murder took place. And 10:30 in the evening is precisely the time at which the terrible events were unfolding. Suggestive is not the word. It would seem the matter is entirely beyond coincidence. You are, of course, at liberty to make whatever outlandish deductions you choose. However, I must insist you hand over the music box disc now. It would be a terrible shame for you to return to your native land in a box. Ugh, what do I do? Absolutely not. There are some things a man must protect at all costs. This may well be one of those things. Then again, it may not.
Hold it!
Mr. Windybank! This is my shop. I can't allow any harm to come to my customers. I don't know why my voice just changed, but it's because I had to hold it. Quote, if that would have happened, I should have to take my own life. Mr. Windybank, no! Alright, that's enough. Oh, nice. Inspector Gregson! Inspector. That's right, Sunshine. The alarm was raised on one of our dedicated emergency lines. So we got here as fast as we could. Now, what's all this about, eh? Oh, praise be. You're here at last, and my voice just went right back to what it was. I was moments away from forfeiting my own life in my very own establishment. It would seem you have the upper hand. Right, you lot have got some explaining to do. I don't appreciate being bothered with some petty argy-bargy. Petty? Mr. Windybank very nearly met with his end. We've been in this shop for like an hour. More than an hour. Yeah, by his own gun as far as I can tell. Oh dear. The whole of Britain could meet with its end if I don't get to the bottom of this case I'm supposed to be working on. What on earth is the case, Inspector? Spare no detail, Gregson. I might have said a little too much. No matter, it's nothing to do with you lot. Anyway, sir, you're gonna have to come with me down to the station. But of course, Inspector. Ah! He's getting away! Get after him, lads. Whistle the beat officer, too. Hands of the... What? Berberoni? What? Sir! Yes, sir. Idiots, the lot of them. There's been a spate of thefts at pawn shops around here recently, so we fitted emergency buttons underneath the counters for brokers to let us know when there's trouble. Oh, Inspector, I was very worried there for a while. Very worried indeed. Now then, Mr. Permanently in mourning. Oh, yes? I'll be taking whatever it is of Mr. McGilded's down to the yard, thank you very much. So hand it over. Oh, yes, of course. No, don't give it to him. It's mine, that is, mine. Sorry, miss, but anything belonging to Mr. McGilded has to be taken in as evidence now. As evidence? If the police demand something as evidence, my dear fellow, we have no choice but to capitulate. It's all yours, Inspector. And so we handed Mr. McGilded's disc over to Inspector Gregson, and were summarily turfed out of the shop and onto the street. Too be continued. Took about 2 hours to get through that. I have 40 minutes or so, 45 minutes before I'm going to stop. So we could probably get through like half of the next segment. 15th April, Baker Street. Let's, actually, you know what? Let's see how far I am in it. Investigation Part 2. You hate the police too? Don't worry, that's in good company here. Oops. This menu is not the easiest to navigate. Shocking incident. So I'm assuming we're at 5 or 6 right now out of 17. This is gonna take a while. Look how far back that autosave is. Wow. That was like 10 minutes ago almost. "15th April, Baker Street. Use Sim for your cool bear gumshoe." See? That's why I hate grown-ups. All they do is feed you a pack of lies and then take stuff from you. Oh, really, Miss Lestrade? Tell me, is that overcoat keeping you warm? What? Oh my, surely you were given that. Yeah, the D let me keep it, after I looked daggers at him long enough. It went through the pockets and then said, "Go on then, have it," before telling me to scarp her. Always pays off giving people you look like... always pays off giving people a look like you ate them. I don't know why I was giving her like the gruff voice there. I am just so fucked right now. I can't help feeling that this is going to get you into serious trouble one day. What I really wanted was that nice shiny disc mine. The music box disc. But Mr. Windybank said it was practically worthless. I think I'm gonna go and have another bash. Give him a long, odd stare. I think not, Miss Lestrade. You shan't enter Windybanks again today. Grumble. Why not? That's not fair. It can't be helped, I'm afraid. The police are investigating the scene now and taking a statement from Mr. Windybank. That disc's mine. I had the ticket for this coat, and it was in this coat's pocket. And there should be something else and all. That's what the Rotten Cove said, ain't it? Yes, he did mention something about another article, didn't he? He appeared at Windybank's pawnbroker accusing Jean of stealing his redemption ticket. An inspector in charge of Scotland... Detective Inspector in charge of Scotland Yard's investigation of the case. He's stern and single-minded in his approach, and a great lover of fish and chips. No self-negative talk. No, I'm fucked because I'm just tired. Yes, he did mention something about another article, didn't he? Well, then, that's mine too, whatever it is. Now she's really pushing her luck. Miss Lestrade, I think it's time to admit defeat. You've had your haul for the day. Yeah, and it's all your fault, Sholmes. So what are your plans now? Will you dine with us this evening? Eh? Iris would be delighted to cook, I'm sure, and I might entertain you with a modest violin recital. No, Ta. Oh. Why would I come on your place, eh? Have you lost your head or something? Is that a bug crawling on me? No, it isn't. Thank God. Felt like something was on me. Oh dear, she's gone. Having reviled on me quite unnecessarily, I might add. I can't help but wondering if perhaps she might turn up anyway. Interesting. Once she's had a chance to calm down, I think there's a good chance she'll decide to come. Very well then. I'll inform Iris to set a place for our potential guest at the dinner table this evening. And one more thing. I should be glad of your company later too. Tsundere thief, yeah. Sorry? I believe I will have a rather splendid surprise to show you. Oh, how exciting! What is it? Yeah, I read it. Don't worry, Tsundere thief. You shall have to wait and see, Mrs. Sato. Until then, later. Until later, then. Bye. Fuck. Ass. Eat. You. Me. I'm ass. Ass man. My name. Ass man. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. What is wrong with me? My brain is, like, turning to absolute mush right now. Unfortunately, we can't gain access at the moment while Scotland Yard are investigating. Oh, we were asked earlier to show our faces here. For the legal consultancy. Can it really be that we've been in Great Britain for 2 months already? Yes, it's gone by in a flash, hasn't it? And what an English gentleman you've trailed off there, Sasato-san. I'm sorry, when I thought it through, I realized it's not at all true, actually. Yeah, Sholmes has 2 adopted children and 1 adopted roommate. I simply don't feel that any Britishness has really rubbed off on you. Nor you, to be honest. Well, that's obviously because... Yes, I know. Without a doubt, it's your kimono. It almost certainly stands out. I do adore the attire of the English ladies. It's quite delightful. But somehow I just don't feel ready to abandon my Japanese dress just yet. I wonder how Sasato-san would look in Western clothes. That'd be interesting to see. Iris and the Thief. I don't think he lets Lestrade stay there. 15th April, 3:46 p.m. Sholmes' suite. So a detective, a scientist, and a thief walks into a house. Sounds like the start of an old joke, yeah. Ah, Susie and Runo, come in, come in. Good afternoon, Iris. Thank you so much for breakfast this morning. This is the second game I've played this year with a girl named Iris in it. Battle Network 6 had an Iris. And she blew herself up. Oh, don't mention it. Goodness, look at the time already. Busy as always? I am. I'm preparing everything for dinner this evening. Already? You're obviously cooking something special, are you? Oh yes, after all, we have a special guest joining us. Guess who it is? Go on. Hee you'll never guess. Look at those little eyes of her shining. Oh dear, it is awkward when you already know the answer, isn't it? It's Ginny! Isn't that exciting? Oh, what a surprise! Yes, that's wonderful news. Wow, Iris seems overjoyed at that idea. She does have a degree in medicine, so she could be a scientist or a doctor, technically. I can't wait to learn some pickpocketing tips from a real professional. Oh yes, that does sound like fun. Just notice this going on down there. Is Sholmes a bunny? Oh my god. What is going on lately with internet stuff? I have referenced that friggin' Walton Files thing like a bunch of times, and now there's just straight up a blue bunny on her bag. Oh yes, that does sound like fun. I'm not sure that's entirely appropriate. Are you, Mr. Naruhodo? Wait, what? Oh. Pickpocketing tips. And by the way, Iris, what's Mr. Sholmes up to? Pissy. Hurley. Oh, he's been like that ever since he got back. Hello, Mr. Sholmes. I beg that you won't speak to me. Sorry. I don't know who you are, but kindly take your leave. As you can see, I'm not here. I don't know how to respond to that. I do apologize. When he gets like this, he's completely oblivious to everything. Yes, I see. Really, he behaves just like a child sometimes, Hurley does. Mr. Sholmes and Iris have something of a parent and child relationship, don't they? Yes, except that it's Iris who's clearly the parent here. Come to think of it, I wonder where her real parents are. What's the matter, Runo? You have such a funny look on your face. Oh no, it's nothing. I know what it is. Why does this girl here live with Mr. Sholmes, you're wondering? Am I right? How How did you... Oh, Runo, I can read you like a book. This girl is dangerous. Don't worry, you can ask me anything. I won't mind. So, by Ginny, you mean Miss Lestrade, the young woman from the Gilded case 2 months ago, right? Yes, who also stole my experimental smoke grenade launcher. Although, after that trial, I invited her back here and we had dinner together. And now we're the best of friends. Oh, what a lovely tale. Yes, now if I bump into her on the street, she runs away as fast as she can. Oh. And I chase after her down the back alleyways. Interesting idea of friendship. And then I let her have the latest color of smoke grenade I've developed. Oh. There's so many beautiful colors in the world. Ginny wants to make me a whole rainbow. Wants me to make a whole rainbow. I suppose this means you've let Miss Lestrade keep the smoke grenade launcher, have you? Yes, that's right. I got bored of it anyway. Hurley always reacts the same way when I shoot him with it now. Poor Hurley. Oh, I can't wait for Ginny to arrive. It's been too long since she last came over. This is reminding you of Arsène Lupin. Well, I mean, Herlock Sholmes literally is a Lupin character, so... That's why they got the rights to it. Maurice Leblanc named the character Herlock Sholmes to avoid the copyright with Sherlock Holmes. But the copyright for Arsène Lupin's... the Lupin stories expired before the copyright to Sherlock Holmes, because there's some bullshit stuff going on with his personality, apparently. That's still copyright. That's still under copyright. So Capcom was like, well, we could get the rights to Herlock Sholmes, so let's use that instead. So it's kind of like a multifaceted reference, rather than just being a clever way of avoiding copyright censors. I'm so excited. Just hope she actually does come. Living with Sholmes. I'm sure you've been wondering why it's that I live here with Hurley, haven't you? Well, it has crossed my mind. That and where are your real parents? My mommy and daddy aren't with me anymore. Mommy passed away when I was born. And at around the same time, my father... Well, he had to go to a faraway land because of one of the cases he and Hurley were working on. Oh. Wait a minute. Did you say he and Hurley? Yes. Daddy and Hurley were always solving mysteries together. Solving mysterious cases together, excuse me. Copyright is bullshit? Yes, it is. Copyright is bullshit. That's why half the problems on the internet exist, and in real life. I hope Arsène in this universe isn't Lucien Arpin. No, they'd be able to use that. I mean, Persona's able to use, Arsène. Hell, there's whole animes about Lupin, Lupin's descendant. She did mention that before. Didn't mention that before. He wrote them all up in his diaries. That's what's in that metal chest over there. Really? He recorded them all? So you mean it's true, Mr. Sholmes really did have a partner with whom he tackled some of his most taxing cases? Oh yes, I mean, it's always nice to have one, isn't it? So Mr. Sholmes' partner was your father? Exactly. Hurley told me I wasn't allowed to look in the chest. That only made me want to look even more, so I opened it up, and found your father's memoirs. Yes, so I asked Hurley, who wrote these? He nearly fell out of his chair. But then he told me. That's when I found out that the author of all those accounts was my father. So Iris's father was Mr. Sholmes' partner. Say his name, it's John Wilson. It's the guy from the first case who was killed, wasn't it? I've practically lived with Hurley my whole life. I was tiny when he took me in. So, it came as quite a shock. When Hurley told me he wasn't really my daddy, I mean... must have done. I wonder why Mr. Sholmes chose to tell you, and at such a young age. Hurley says it's because he wouldn't have been able to hide it from me. Oh? Well, having lived with Hurley all these years, you might say that his ways have rubbed off on me. There are some things I could just see. Especially lies. I almost know when people are lying before they open their mouths sometimes. Right. Anyway, I was so fascinated when I read Daddy's diaries. That's what inspired me to write The Adventures of Herlock Sholmes, actually. I'd always assumed Mr. Sholmes simply told you all these thrilling stories. Oh no, Hurley's hopeless like that. He forgets everything. As soon as he solved the case, it all but vanishes from his mind. Oh, I see. The other day it was so embarrassing. As usual, he totally forgot about the case he just solved. So the very next day he gathered together all the people involved and proceeded to solve the case again. It was quite a shock for everyone. You could say that again. You share your father's surname, don't you, Iris? That's right, Wilson. Daddy is Dr. John H. Wilson. Ah, there we go. Fuck. I learned it from his diaries that he's a doctor of medicine, you see. That's what prompted me to study and study so that I could earn a doctorate as well. Iris's father, who went to some distant land, and is a doctor by the name of John H. Wilson. Yeah, when I was playing last night, like, I went back to the first case last night, I was like, wait a minute, John H. Wilson? Oh, fuck. Elementary, dear Wilson. That's right, visiting professor of medicine at Imperial Yume University. And the man who, in the most bizarre of circumstances, lost his life just before we left Japan. Mrs. Sato. Yes. Perhaps we shouldn't pursue this conversation any further at this time. I think that would be for the best. Ah, my dear fellows, how good to see you. Mr. Sholmes? Yeah, I didn't realize it until last night when I was getting one of the accolades off stream. I went back to the first case, and I was like, wait a minute. He went to Japan for milk. Well, he went to Japan to be a teacher of medicine, apparently. Why ever did you not make your presence known to me before? We did. Well, no matter now. So, how the devil are you? We've been with you for most of the day. Goodness, really? Do tell me, Mr. Sholmes, is your violin unscathed? My violin? Whatever are you talking about, my dear madam? Oh, never mind that now. I have something far more interesting to show you. Behold, my dear fellows. Oh, another music box disc. Not another disc, Mr. Sato. This is the one Gregson demanded we hand over as evidence. Mr. McGilded's disc. Oh my. Then, what's it doing here? You know, at times, Mr. Naruhodo, I think that though I have an undeniable turn for detection, I may well even be more adept at larceny. He pickpocketed it? Unfucking believable. Oh, that would be wonderfully exciting. I'd be your pickpocketing assistant. And Runo could be our go-to lawyer if we ever got caught. Does Sholm have a problem with his memory? It's more like he's just very eccentric. Plus, Susie has such beautiful handwriting, she could write all our menacing crime notifications. Yes, I'd be delighted. I'm just going to pretend this conversation never happened, I think. I don't understand. How did that disc come to be in your possession? I thought Inspector Gregson took it back to Scotland Yard. Quite correct. And that sort of uncompromising attitude is precisely why I always carry some of this. That's a bar of caramel, Mr. Sholmes. It literally says Sholmes' caramel on it. Your one and only friend in times of loneliness, if I'm not mistaken. If you will humor me, my dear fellows, cast your minds back to when this good detective confiscated the disc.
be taking whatever... Yeah, no, we already read this. For the briefest of moments, I had the disc in my hand, did I not? Yes, you did, but I still don't understand. It was at precisely that moment that I summoned my one and only friend into action. I pressed the disc into a pair of bars, like this. That's amazing. The disc and all the minuscule protrusions have made an image into the caramel. Indeed, this caramel is quite exceptional. I developed it myself, you know. Suitably soft for making impressions, but resistant to melting. The result of a precisely controlled solution. I don't know what Watson and Sherlock would look like as personas. I don't know, that'd be interesting. But I guess we won't find out. If we could find out what Herlock would look like as a persona. We'll probably be getting, next month, I think we might be getting the announcement of Persona 6. I know we're getting some sort of Persona announcement in September. We're getting like 7 of them, apparently. Excuse me. How extraordinary. Carrying a pair of these on one's person frequently proves very useful indeed. Take a house key, for example. A simple press and its unique form is duplicated. I can enter anyone's property at will, and never without high sucrose nourishment. Yes, it sounds illegal. From the image, I was able to recreate this. I confess I was most curious to know what manner of music would issue from this disc when played. Hold on a sec. Oh, still checked. Do tell us then, Mr. Sholmes. What music does the disc play? Well, unfortunately, I have no idea. No idea? None whatsoever. Are you familiar with the workings of a music box, my dear fellows? No, I'm afraid not. Goodness, you don't know, Bruno? Excuse me. Told the human feelings indicate that you need sleep. Yeah, in a couple hours. I'm gonna stop streaming in about 20 minutes. Inside a music box is a special metal piece called a comb. That's what produces the sound. Small protuberances pluck the different teeth of the comb as they rotate past it, making the different notes. The first music boxes to be invented used a rotating cylinder with protuberances on it. That's a hard word. But over time, a new type of player was introduced, which uses discs such as these. With that development, the popularity of music boxes spread far and wide, all around the globe. Why exactly? Because the discs are easy to produce and can be interchanged to facilitate the playing of different tunes. There are a great many firms in Europe now manufacturing music boxes as a result. It is wonderful to be able to enjoy music, even when no performer is present. But it is the very success of the invention that means we are now presented with an insurmountable problem. What do you mean? As you may imagine, the construction of one's firm music box does not match that of another. And we have no way of knowing in which music box this particular disc was designed to be played. There is no resolution to this problem, I'm afraid. It's quite intractable. I see. So that's why. Naturally, I tested the disc in a few music boxes I have at my disposal. But as you could hear, to no avail. The results were equally unsatisfactory in this one. So, I am presently engaged in acquiring an example of all music boxes ever made in Europe. Every single one? It's Hurley for you. Always taking things too far. Let's see something. Did they add, no they didn't add, what's his name? The people. But, my dear girl, an unsolved riddle is quite repugnant to my constitution. But surely all the different types in Europe will amount to huge volumes of music boxes, won't it? Yes, that is certainly true. You like I like turtles. I remember that kid. I wonder what he's up to these days. Yes, that is certainly true, in the worst case. I shall just have to ask you to vacate the attic room. What? Magnus McGilded. Not a name I expected to hear again so soon. Yes, it's only been 2 months since that grisly case. Mr. McGilded perished within hours of the trial's conclusion. Look at that grumpy face of his. Was it the curse of the Reaper? No one knows, still now. The omnibus was reduced to a pile of ash. Not a shred of evidence remained. And with that man's death, the truth about the murder in which he was so intimately involved was buried. Even though we successfully established Mr. McGilded's innocence in the trial, the newspapers are still claiming that it remains an unsolved case. The murder of the brickmaker, Mr. Thrice-Fired Mason. In the end, the truth of the matter remains a mystery. We still have no idea what really happened that night. And although Mr. McGilded was found not guilty through my defense, I still don't know if that was the right judgment or not. His face prosecutor's like, oh, I woke up at 3 a.m. in the fucking morning for this bullshit. It would appear this case is not yet closed. Well, it's time I started getting things ready for dinner, I think. Ginny will be here before long. Thank you, Iris. Oh, well, you must let me help you, then. Of course, Susie. There's plenty to do. I think I shall investigate the condition of my faithful performing partner. Now then, where did I leave it? Let this be a lesson to you, Mr. Sholmes. Never leave anything too precious with the pawnbroker. Yes. You may be right. Oh, that reminds me of something Mr. Windybank said before. He said that he had a manuscript of Iris's in pawn, didn't he? Did he? Yes, he definitely mentioned it. Mr. Sholmes' latest tale of otherworldly mystery lies dormant in my storeroom. Were his words, I believe. So you heard about that, did you? I expect you were as incensed as I was. Oh yes, the idea of such a wonderful story languishing in Mr. Windybank's storeroom, gathering dust. My dear madam, I'm quite sure I told you already. The pawnbroker's storeroom is the safest place for it, more secure than a bank's vault. And what about your Stradivarius, Hurley? Was that safe and secure? Well, there may be the occasional mix-up, caused by a certain impetuous someone not too far from me now. Do you have any idea how long it took me to write that Baskervilles story, Hurley? Oh, it sounds exciting. The Hound of Baskervilles. I should love to read it. Ah! What's going on here? Why does it feel like an icy chill just swept through the room? Susie, what did you just say? You said the Hound of the Baskervilles? But how could you know the full title? Well, that's because Mrs. Sato is such a great fan of all the stories about Mr. Sholmes, of course. But Bruno, the Hound of the Baskervilles has never been published. What? When I showed Hurley the manuscript, he told me that he wasn't allowed to publish it yet. I don't understand. That's why he said that he'd keep it safe until it was the right time for the story to be made public, you see. So that's why the manuscript is at the Windybanks? And yet, how could Susie here know its title? Well, Hurley, what's going on? What is it, Mr. Sholmes? It would appear our guest has arrived. Miss Lestrade. This was a bad idea. I knew I weren't welcome. I'm going. Oh, wait, Miss Lestrade.
We've all been eagerly awaiting your arrival. Haven't we, Iris? Oh yes, just wait there, Ginny. We'll all have everything ready in a jiffy. Come along, Susie. Right, of course. It's a pleasure to see you here, Miss Lestrade. Please, make yourself at home. Don't stand in the doorway, my dear girl. Come along in. What say you to some Mendelssohn? I won't take no for an answer. What the hell is that? Is that a type of alcohol? She's 17. Oh, it's a type of... It's a composer. Damn it. Wow, I look stupid. He's gonna play her music. Meddlesome it is, then. Meow. Meow. That evening, Iris prepared us all a meal that was even more delicious than usual. Mr. Sholmes' violin performance was in no way meddlesome, and Gina, as we came to call her, taught us all about how to steal things from one another without being noticed. Everyone thoroughly enjoyed themselves well into the night. April, 9:34 p.m. Naruhodo's legal consultancy. That was a very enjoyable evening, wasn't it? Oh yes, Iris's cooking was truly divine, and I feel as though I could still hear the enchanting strains of Mr. Sholmes' violin, even now. Best of all, I bet I could steal the glasses from his lordship's face next time we're in court. Naruhodo-san, could I consult with you about something, I wonder? What's the matter, Sasato-san? It's about the telegram I received. The one that arrived first thing this morning, I suppose. I've been summoned. What? Summoned? What do you mean? The telegram was from the Lord Chief Justice's office. Lord Strongheart has asked to see me. Lord Chief Justice? When? Tomorrow morning. What? Then we have to start prepping at once. Oh no, that won't be necessary, Naruhodo-san. I've been summoned alone. Alone? What on earth for? I have no idea. I suppose I shall find out tomorrow. What's all this about? Whatever it is, it's making me feel very uneasy. Oh, who could that be, I wonder? It's Knuckles. Knock knock, it's Knuckles. Good evening, friends. Ah, Iris, hello again. And Gina, too. Yes, Ginny's going to stay with us tonight. She's going to sleep in with me. Isn't that right, Ginny? Well, yeah. How lovely. Let me make a pot of tea. You know, I've learned so much today. Oh, what in particular? All those things Ginny showed us, wasn't it wonderful? Ah, you mean all those pickpocketing techniques. We had really fun trying them out on each other, didn't we? Excuse me. I think I've awakened a natural talent. I could earn a living from it. You might be getting ahead of yourself a little there. So, what brings you up to our humble quarters at this late hour? Well, you see... Whoops. Messed up. I came to return this. Wait, what? That's mine! Wait a minute, it's on this court... It's in the court record. Oh my, however did you... I told you, didn't I? I have a natural talent for it. Oh yes, I'd forgotten. Iris literally is a child genius. So anyway, here, you can have it back. Not that I really understand why you wear it, though. Ah, thank you. Alright then, good night. Yes, good night. So this is your office, is it? What do you think, Ginny? think I wouldn't fancy me chances with a lawyer what lives in a place like this. Yes, me too. It seems as though Iris here still has something she'd like to talk about. I suppose she probably wants to talk about the manuscript. Yes, I suppose she probably does. Bruno, what are you doing? Look, I'm not gonna steal nothing, alright? It's all junk anyway. Charming, I suppose I should engage our guests in conversation, really. What if I showed you this, Iris? It's just a boring old thing, really, but... Oh, I don't really like boring things. Looks like Japanese modesty is easily misinterpreted by young Western children. I mean, who does like boring things? No one wants to be shown something boring. Come to think of it, you're always introducing things with, this is boring, but it's a bad habit. You should stop it. I'll be sure to let the entire population of the Empire of Japan know on my return. Iris, I suppose you're hoping to talk about the manuscript, aren't you? Aren't you going to tell me? I'm sorry. I need a little more time. Please. Alright, I understand. I hope I haven't made you feel awkward. Oh no, not at all, Iris. Not at all. I don't know what all this is about, really, but... It's a story you made up, is it, Iris? This mantle script, or whatever you call it? It's not exactly a story that I made up. It's something I read in Daddy's diaries. Daddy's? That's right. I don't suppose I've mentioned it to you before, Ginny, but... My daddy was Hurley's assistant once. His partner. Eh? He solved all sorts of strange and mysterious cases together. Is that right, mister? Apparently so. I was as surprised as you are, though. And Daddy wrote all the details in every single case down, you see, in his diaries. So I study them and write my stories based on what actually happened. So, where's your old man now, then? He had to go away on urgent business. To a faraway land, and he'll be gone a very long time. Oh. So, I've never really met him. Oh, right. Come to think of it. I don't know anything about Gina's parents, either. Perhaps we should ask her. I realize that I don't know anything about your parents, Gina. I ain't got any, have I? Never did, never have. Oh. Look, the East End's full of orphans like me. No one wants nothing to do with us from the minute we're born, not even our mums. But we all stick together. The older ones look after the little ones and make sure they get by. So that's why you're a pickpocket. Nah, diving's my life. I love it. I get a kick out of it every time I lift some pompous idiot's purse. And that's how we all afford to eat. I'm like Robin Hood, ain't I? That's how I see it. Oh, Gina. I do think about it sometimes. What it'd be like to have parents, I mean. I always thought it'd make everything right. But having listened to what Iris just said, it sounds like having parents ain't always easy either. Oh. I mean, if you know you never had them, you don't feel like you're always wanting to meet them. It's true. I do want to see Daddy so much. Oh, Iris. this sucks. Iris, this Hound of the Baskervilles story. I take it that's another tale inspired by your father's accounts? That's right. I thought it was fascinating. But it's different somehow. From the other cases, I mean. Oh? How? I don't really know, but it must be special in some way. Because after I'd written it and I showed the manuscript to Hurley, he turned as white as a sheet. It was the first time I've ever seen him like that. It pains me to have to say this after you've toiled over it for so long, Iris, but this story must not be published at this time, under any circumstances. But why not? It's one of my best works. I'm not at liberty to say. Not now. So please, do not ask me. Alright then. I won't. But I do solemnly swear that I will explain everything one day, Iris. When the time is right. And that's how the manuscript came to be with Mr. Windibank, isn't it? Yes. Hurley said it had to be somewhere very safe. That really gets my goat, that does. He's treating you like a child. It's mean, that's what it is. Keeping secrets like that. I'm sure Mr. Sholmes isn't trying to be mean. Eh? If he said he wasn't at liberty to talk about it, I'm sure there must have been a very good reason. I think so too. You ought to trust him for your own good. But he can't pull wool over my eyes. Sholmes is lying to Iris. I bet my life on it. What? Hurley's lying to me? Gina, what did you mean when you said that you know Mr. Sholmes is lying to Iris? Well, he reckons he popped that mantle script or whatever, right? But come on, that's obviously a load of rubbish. Oh my, why would you think that, Gina? It's simple. If that story was really an old Windibank storeroom, there's no way someone from halfway around the world, in other words, you, could know about it. Sorry, Iris, but if you ask me, he sold it. Without telling you. But Hurley would never do something like that. I'm sure of it. Ha! Grown-ups do a lot worse than that, believe me. Barefaced liars, the lot of them. You just ain't realized it yet. I'm telling you, that mantle script ain't at Windibank's. You'd soon see it if you had looked. Even if you think you could trust him, I don't. That Sholmes is a liar, like the rest of them. If I'm honest, I have wondered if Hurley's telling me the truth sometimes. See? Oh, but I don't mean that I think he sold it. I mean that I sometimes wonder if he might have hidden my manuscript somewhere. Somewhere I don't know. Even though it's wrong of me to doubt him. Don't be too hard on yourself, Iris. Lassie's gonna grow up way too fast, yeah. I mean, she's already grown up. Oh my goodness, look at the time! It's past tea time. Come along, Ginny. We should go back downstairs. Yeah, alright. And please, don't mention any of this to Hurley, will you? No, of course not. Good night then, Iris. Good night, Gina. You must let me make breakfast for you tomorrow morning. I insist! Oh, yes, please. I can't wait, Susie. Good night, then. Iris, it sure is easy to forget, isn't it? Sometimes she speaks just like an adult, but deep down, she's still just a child. Well, I think it's time that I turned in for the night too, Naruhodo-san. Dr. John H. Wilson. Iris's father. I mean, I'm sure there's a reason why Sholmes hasn't said anything. We'll find out later, probably. But also, The name of the murdered visiting professor at Yume University. It can't be a mere coincidence. There's something deeper going on. Mr. Naruhodo. Mr. Naruhodo. That voice. That's Mr. Sholmes. What's going on? It's the middle of the night. It's Miss Lestrade. She's gone. Gina. She was supposed to be sleeping in Iris's room, but her bed is empty. Well, she's an independent young woman. She's probably decided to go home, no? I think not. From speaking to her before she retired, I received a distinct impression that she was looking forward to breakfasting with Mrs. Sato. No, I don't believe the girl has gone home, but I believe waiting for her over an hour now. Over an hour? Oh. If you'll indulge me, look out of the window, my dear fellow. What's this about? Wait a minute. Why is there a light on at this time of night? How could you see all the way over there from where you are? That's Mr. Windybank's pawnbrokery. Mr. Windybank's... Oh no! Yes, we just saw this. Could Gina have gone? Seems you have to summon all of the situation, Mr. Naruhodo. Sorry. Oh, no, not really. Well, anyway, we must investigate. At once! Mrs. Sato. th of April, 1:14 a.m. Baker Street. The door to Windybank's. It's open. And the lamp is burning. Must be Gina, mustn't it? Let us hope it's nothing more sinister. What? Come, there's not a moment to lose. Clearly something is afoot inside. There's no one here. Oh, yes. There is. Whoa. Ah! Mr. Sholmes! Mr. Sholmes! What the? Has Sholmes been shot? Leave me, Mr. Naruhodo. But... after them! Go! Right. Blast! I've lost them! Hello, hello? What are we here? Oh, is this the... Oh, it's a beat cop. It's a Bobby. The alarm was just raised from this pawnbroker, sir. Would you happen to know something about it? Officer, come with me. It's my friend, Mr. Sholmes. He's been shot. 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 With the policeman close behind me, I ran back to Windybank's.
Mr. Sholmes!
Mr. Naruhodo!
How bad is it? Never mind me, but there's much at stake. Behind that door. In the storeroom. Hurry!
Oh, shit. He's been shot to the back. And there's Gina.
It's Gina!
Well. Oh, that poor suicidal old man actually died. I'm upset about that. Behind that door was another door, yes. There's a tiny door on the door. Not even gonna... Oh god, really? Okay. It's just replaying all this. Oh, they put the gun in her hand. It's Gina. From that moment, Windy Bank's pawnbrokery became a crime scene. Everything that followed happened in a whirlwind of activity. Blech. The arrival of the police, the preliminary investigation of the scene, and the questioning. It was just before dawn before I was allowed back to my lodgings at 221B. 16th of April, 6:21 a.m. Alright. This is where we'll stop for the night. Well, we certainly, things certainly escalated there, after a whole lot of, back and forth. Whew. Looks like this final case and all of its mysteries are finally getting underway. I guess what I'll do is tomorrow I will start with... Let me see when, let me see if this tells you what date it is. So April 16th is where we're at right now. So this is March, okay. Oh, we could go right back to the escapades. No, don't save. Why would you want to save during the escapades? They're like 10 minutes long. And we'll check this one. So if these are both before April, I will do them beginning of next stream. And then move back to the case. 23rd. Oh, this is even earlier. Okay. So that's fine. Probably just do this off stream. Whatever. But yeah, I'm done for tonight. Thank you everyone for coming. As always, thank you for watching. I'll be back tomorrow and Thursday with more... Great Ace Attorney. Hopefully we'll finish this by the end of the week. I doubt it, though. Won't be here Friday and Saturday, like before. May not be here Sunday, either. 30th April. Okay, so this is way after, so... So we can do the next two, and then the last two are going to be after we finish the 5th case. That's what I'm being led to believe here. So I could do these two next stream, and then these two after I'm done. But yeah, we'll play more of this, we'll get through it, and then we'll see what happens. As I said, I won't be here Friday, Saturday, maybe Sunday. Next week I won't be here Tuesday and Wednesday, because of the Twitch blackout. I'll probably record something that day, maybe, I don't know, we'll see. But we'll see what happens after that. Despite what I said, I did order No More Heroes 3 and the new WarioWare game, so maybe I'll stream both or one of those. Probably the WarioWare game, because that's quick. WarioWare's never that long. Yeah, but with all the hate raid stuff going around lately, we're doing a Twitch blackout on the 1st of September. For me, since the way I stream is like very weird, it's going to be the 31st and the 1st, and I figured I'd just take those 2 days off, maybe record something on my own, see if anything see if like how that works out, and we'll see what happens. I'll upload the videos very quickly too, because if it's not streamed, then I don't have to wait 24 hours to upload it. But yeah, we'll see what happens. Anyway, thank you all for watching, especially you, Sour Cream. Thank you for coming by. Thank you all for watching. If you want to watch more streams, check out twitch.tv/team/wildabandon. Plenty of people streaming there right now. My auto host will take you to one of them once I go offline. You'll have a great evening, and I will see you tomorrow. Good night.